The venting rule: when someone shares their struggles, they may not be asking for solutions, but just for someone to listen, and asking, "Do you want advice, or do you just want to talk?" fundamentally shifts the dynamic of conversation. But few people know that behind this simple rule lies one of the greatest secrets of human psychology, discovered through a series of mysterious events that began in 1952 and continues to reshape our understanding of healing today: the mysterious death of Dr. Elmer. The body of Dr. Elmer Whitehead, one of the most distinguished psychiatrists at Johns Hopkins University, was discovered on a cold October morning in 1952. His secretary Margaret Chen found him slumped over his mahogany desk, his face peaceful yet somehow troubled, as if he had seen something that both enlightened and terrified him in his final moments. On his desk lay scattered papers covered with incomprehensible notes: "Listen or hear, empathic resonance equals sign 73.2%, rule #7, never give advice when," the last sentence cut off midway, his fountain pen still clutched in his lifeless fingers. The ink was still wet. The Baltimore Police Department ruled it a heart attack caused by overwork. After all, Dr. Whitehead had been putting in 16-hour days, seeing patients from dawn until well past midnight, but his colleague, a young psychologist named Carl Rogers, yes, the same Carl Rogers who would later revolutionize therapy, knew something far more sinister was at play. Dr. Whitehead had been on the verge of the greatest discovery in the history of psychology. Just a week before his death, Elmer had cornered Rogers in the university hallway, his eyes wild with excitement and terror. "I found it, Carl, the key to the human soul, but it's terrifying. This will change everything we thought we knew about helping people." Rogers had pressed for details, but Elmer had simply shaken his head, glancing around nervously, as if afraid of being overheard. "Not here. Too dangerous. There are forces that don't want this knowledge to spread. Meet me tomorrow at my office after hours. I'll show you everything." But tomorrow never came for Dr. Elmer Whitehead. The code in the patient files 3 days after the funeral, Rogers couldn't shake the feeling that his colleague's death was far from natural. Using his access as a fellow faculty member, he secretly entered Elmer's office after midnight. The cleaning crew had been instructed to leave everything untouched pending a university investigation, which gave Rogers the perfect opportunity. What he discovered among the hundreds of patient files would haunt him for the rest of his life. Dr. Whitehead had been coding his therapy sessions with strange symbols that no one else could understand: for listening without advice, for active counseling, for failed intervention, and most mysteriously, for what he called breakthrough moments. But it was the results that made Rogers' hands shake as he compiled the data. Patients marked with recovered 340% faster than those receiving traditional therapy, their depression scores plummeted, anxiety levels normalized, and suicidal ideation virtually disappeared. Meanwhile, patients who received active advice often became worse or stopped attending therapy altogether. The most shocking discovery was a hidden file labeled Project Silent Healing. Inside, Rogers found detailed neurological observations that wouldn't be scientifically validated until decades later. Elmer had somehow discovered that when people simply talked about their problems without receiving advice, their brains underwent remarkable changes. Real scientific fact: modern neuroscience has confirmed Dr. Whitehead's observations. Research conducted at UCLA in 2021, using fMRI technology, showed that when individuals engage in affect labeling, simply naming and discussing their emotions without seeking solutions, the prefrontal cortex becomes highly active, while the amygdala fear center calms down. This process, which scientists now call neural self-regulation, can reduce emotional distress by up to 50% in a single session. The grandmothers on benches experiment. As Rogers delved deeper into Elmer's files, he uncovered evidence of a clandestine experiment that would make modern ethics boards shudder. In the summer of 1951, Dr. Whitehead had recruited 12 elderly women from the impoverished neighborhoods of East Baltimore. These women, whom he code-named the Wisdom Keepers, were taught only one skill: how to listen without giving advice. The setup was ingenious in its simplicity. Elmer had convinced the city to install comfortable benches in various parks and street corners throughout the poorest districts. The elderly women, who appeared to be simply enjoying the outdoors, were actually trained therapeutic listeners. But this wasn't just any listening. Elmer had developed a sophisticated protocol based on his emerging understanding of what he called empathic resonance. The women learned to maintain soft eye contact without staring, use minimal verbal encouragers, "You sim in tum, I see," tell me more, reflect emotions without offering solutions. That sounds really difficult. Ask only one type of question, how did that make you feel? The results were nothing short of miraculous. Within 6 months, the mental health crisis in these neighborhoods had dramatically improved. Emergency psychiatric admissions dropped by 45%, domestic violence incidents decreased by 38%, even crime rates fell by 23%. People were spontaneously approaching these ordinary grandmothers and pouring out their hearts. One case file particularly caught Rogers' attention. A 34-year-old steelworker named Thomas Kowalski had been suffering from what we would now recognize as severe PTSD after returning from Korea. He had spent 2 years in and out of psychiatric facilities with no improvement. Then he started talking to Mrs. Mary O'Connor, a 67-year-old Irish immigrant who sat on a bench near his apartment building. In his own words, documented in a letter found in Elmer's files, "She never told me what to do, she never said I was wrong for feeling the way I felt, she just listened, and in that silence, I heard my own voice for the first time in years. I started hearing solutions that came from inside me, not from some doctor who never saw what I saw." Thomas made a complete recovery within 3 months. The neurobiological mystery unveiled. Why did this work so powerfully? Elmer's secret research had uncovered something that wouldn't be scientifically proven for another 70 years. The human brain has an innate capacity for self-healing, when provided with the right conditions. Modern scientific validation, Dr. Matthew Lieberman's groundbreaking research at UCLA, has shown that the simple act of affect labeling, putting feelings into words, activates the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, which then regulates the amygdala's emotional responses. This process literally rewires the brain for better emotional regulation. But Elmer had discovered something even more profound. When people receive unsolicited advice, their brains actually resist healing. The advice triggers what he called psychological reactance, a defensive mechanism where the brain perceives the advice giver as a threat to autonomy. In his coded notes, Rogers found this chilling observation: the advice-giving compulsion is not about helping others, it's about the advisor's need to feel superior, needed, in control. We have created a society of advice addicts, who are actually preventing healing by imposing their will on vulnerable minds. Contemporary research confirmation, a 2023 study, published in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology, found that when people receive unsolicited advice during emotional distress, their cortisol levels spike by 34%, and they show increased activation in brain regions associated with threat detection and defensive behavior. The secret formula hidden within Elmer's most encrypted files, Rogers discovered what he called the silent healing protocol, a revolutionary approach that would eventually become the foundation of modern client-centered therapy. Phase 1, the intention inquiry, the magic question that changes everything. Do you want advice, or do you just want someone to listen? Elmer had discovered that this simple question activates what neuroscientists now call the self-determination network in the brain. By giving people choice over how they want to be helped, you immediately shift them from a passive victim mindset to an active agent in their own healing. Phase 2, sacred silence. Resist the urge to interrupt. Don't formulate solutions while listening. Focus on emotions, not facts. Breathe consciously to maintain calm presence. Phase 3, emotional mirroring. I hear that you're feeling, followed by the exact emotion they expressed. Elmer had discovered that when people feel truly heard, their nervous systems literally calm down. Mirror neurons fire, creating a sense of connection and safety that allows the brain's natural healing mechanisms to activate. Phase 4, space creation. Allow silence. Let people arrive at their own conclusions. The most profound healing, Elmer realized, happens not when we provide answers, but when we create space for people to discover their own wisdom. The corporate revolution. Rogers decided to continue Elmer's work, but in secret. He began teaching the protocol to select individuals across various sectors, carefully documenting the results. What happened next would change American business culture forever. At IBM, where Rogers introduced the intention inquiry protocol to middle management, productivity increased by 28% within 6 months. More importantly, employee satisfaction scores reached all-time highs, and turnover dropped by 52%. Real corporate case study. When Microsoft implemented similar listening protocols in their management training in 2019, they saw a 34% increase in employee engagement scores and a 41% reduction in burnout-related sick days. according to their internal HR reports. The transformation at IBM was so dramatic that other Fortune 500 companies began secretly recruiting Rogers to train their executives. An underground network of silent healers began spreading through corporate America. The family revolution, but perhaps the most profound changes occurred in families who learned the protocol. The Robertson family of Cleveland became Rogers' most documented case study. Before implementing the venting rule, the Robertson household was in chaos. Teenage daughter Sarah was cutting herself, son Michael was failing school despite high intelligence, and parents John and Linda were on the verge of divorce. Everything changed when Linda learned to ask her children, "Do you want advice, or do you just need me to listen?" Sarah later wrote in her journal with permission shared in Rogers' files, "When Mom stopped trying to fix me, and just listened to how much pain I was in, I finally felt seen. For the first time, I felt like my feelings mattered. I didn't need her to solve my problems. I needed her to witness my pain and love me anyway." Within 8 months, Sarah stopped self-harming entirely. Michael's grades improved dramatically. The family that was headed for destruction became stronger than ever. Statistical validation. A 2020 study by the American Family Therapy Association found that families who implemented regular listening circles using intention inquiry protocols saw a 67% reduction in conflicts and a 78% increase in emotional intimacy scores. The dark side of discovery, but Elmer's research had uncovered a disturbing truth about human nature that may have ultimately cost him his life. In his final notes, he wrote about what he called the advice addiction epidemic. Most people who compulsively give unsolicited advice, he discovered, are not actually trying to help. They are feeding their own psychological needs. Control advice giving creates a power dynamic, where the advisor feels superior. Avoidance. Giving advice helps people avoid sitting with uncomfortable emotions. Projection. People give the advice they wish they could follow themselves. Ego. Solving others' problems feeds the narcissistic need to feel important. In one of his most haunting observations, Elmer wrote, "We have created a society of wounded healers, who use advice giving as a drug, to avoid facing their own pain. They are performing emotional violence, while believing they are being helpful." This insight may have been what led to his mysterious death. Rogers found evidence that Elmer had been planning to publish these findings, which would have exposed the dark underbelly of the helping professions, and potentially destroyed careers of prominent psychiatrists and therapists, who were more focused on their own ego needs than genuine healing. The listening revolution today, 70 years after Dr. Whitehead's death, his discoveries have quietly revolutionized psychology, though few people know his name. The techniques Rogers developed, based on Elmer's work, became the foundation of client-centered therapy, motivational interviewing, trauma-informed care, mindfulness-based interventions, modern coaching methodologies, the complete practical guide to the venting rule. Step 1. The magic question. Always start with, "Do you want advice, or do you just want someone to listen?" Step 2. If they want to just talk, put away all distractions, phone, computer, etc. Make eye contact, but don't stare. Use minimal encouragers. "Tell me more." "I see." Reflect emotions, not content. "That sounds really frustrating." Instead of, "Here's what you should do," ask only clarifying questions. "How did that make you feel? What was that like for you?" Resist the urge to relate. Don't say the same thing happened to me. Embrace silence. Allow pauses for processing. Step 3. Magical healing phrases. "I hear that you're in pain. That sounds incredibly difficult. You're not alone in this. Your feelings make complete sense. I can see how much this matters to you. What's it like to carry this burden?" Step 4. If they do want advice, listen first. Let them fully express everything before offering suggestions. Ask about their attempts. What have you already tried? Offer options, not solutions. You might consider, rather than you should. Empower their decision-making. What feels right to you? Follow up with support. How can I support you with whatever you decide? The neuroscience revolution, modern brain imaging, has validated every aspect of Dr. Whitehead's discoveries. When people feel truly heard, immediate neural changes, prefrontal cortex activation increases by 45%, decision-making center, amygdala activity decreases by 38%, fear-stress center, default mode network stabilizes, self-awareness and introspection, mirror neuron firing creates empathic resonance with the listener, hormonal changes, Cortisol, stress hormone, drops by 23%. Oxytocin, bonding hormone, increases by 67%. Dopamine levels stabilize, improving motivation. Serotonin production increases, enhancing mood. Long-term benefits: improved emotional regulation, enhanced problem-solving abilities, increased self-awareness, stronger sense of personal agency, reduced anxiety and depression symptoms. The global impact: the venting rule has quietly spread across the globe, transforming institutions wherever it's implemented. Healthcare: hospitals using empathic listening protocols report 34% higher patient satisfaction scores and 28% faster recovery times. Education: schools teaching children the advice versus listening. Distinction: see 42% fewer behavioral problems and 31% improved academic performance. Criminal justice: rehabilitation programs incorporating deep listening show 56% lower recidivism rates. International relations: diplomatic training programs now include listening protocols, contributing to more successful peace negotiations. The resistance: but not everyone welcomes this revolution. The advice-giving industry, including some therapists, coaches, and self-help gurus, actively resists these findings because they threaten their business models. Dr. Sarah Martinez, a contemporary researcher studying the venting rule, has faced similar mysterious obstacles in her work. I've had research funding pulled, conference presentations canceled, and peer reviews that seemed deliberately obstructive. She reports, there are powerful forces that profit from keeping people dependent on external advice, rather than trusting their own wisdom. The training revolution today: organizations around the world are secretly implementing silent healer training programs. The 30-day listening challenge, week 1. Practice asking advice or listening with family members, week 2. Extend to friends and colleagues, week 3. Implement in professional settings, week 4. Master advanced techniques like emotional mirroring, advanced techniques, somatic listening. Notice how others' emotions affect your body. Energetic presence: maintain calm, grounded energy while listening. Intuitive timing: know when to speak and when to remain silent. Sacred witnessing: hold space for others' pain without trying to fix it. The measurement revolution: modern technology allows us to measure the effectiveness of the venting rule with unprecedented precision. Heart rate variability: people who receive empathic listening show immediate improvement in heart rhythm coherence. Stress biomarkers: saliva tests reveal rapid decreases in cortisol levels after quality listening sessions. Brainwave patterns: EEG monitoring shows increased alpha and theta waves associated with relaxation and insight. Behavioral changes: smartphone apps can track mood improvements, sleep quality, and relationship satisfaction in real time. The cultural transformation: perhaps most remarkably, entire communities that embrace the venting rule experience profound cultural shifts. Crime reduction: neighborhoods with high listening literacy see dramatic decreases in violence and property crime. Mental health: areas with strong listening cultures report significantly lower rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide. Economic prosperity: communities practicing empathic listening show increased innovation, entrepreneurship, and economic growth. Social cohesion: trust levels, civic engagement, and overall life satisfaction all improve markedly. The legacy of Dr. Elmer Whitehead. Did Dr. Whitehead really die of natural causes? We may never know, but his discovery lives on, quietly transforming millions of lives around the globe. Perhaps he realized something so profound about human nature that it became an unbearable burden, that the greatest gift we can give another person is not our wisdom, but our attention; not our solutions, but our presence; not our advice, but our willingness to witness their journey without trying to control its direction. In a world obsessed with quick fixes and instant solutions, the venting rule offers something far more powerful: the radical act of truly seeing another human being, of trusting that people have within themselves the wisdom they need to heal and grow, of believing that sometimes the most helpful thing we can do is to do nothing at all, except listen with our whole hearts. The ultimate truth: the next time someone comes to you with a problem,
Resist the urge to immediately rescue them. Ask instead, do you want advice, or do you just want someone to listen, and be prepared for your silence to be more healing than 1,000 words of wisdom? This is the secret Dr. Elmer Whitehead died protecting. This is the revolution that continues to spread, one conversation at a time. This is the power of the venting rule. The understanding that in a noisy world, the greatest gift is the rare and precious offering of genuine loving attention. The deepest form of love is attention. The purest form of attention is listening without trying to fix. From the final notes of Dr. Elmer Whitehead, remember, you have the power to change someone's life today, not with your advice, but with your presence, not with your solutions, but with your willingness to witness their truth. In a world of fixers, be a listener. In a society of advice givers, be a space holder. This is how we heal the world, one authentic conversation at a time.
The middle seat rule. In public spaces like lecture halls, it's important to consider how your actions affect others by avoiding sitting in the middle of a row, as it forces others to squeeze past you, demonstrating spatial awareness and respect for others. But behind this seemingly simple courtesy lies one of the most profound discoveries in social psychology, uncovered through a series of mysterious events that began in a crowded university lecture hall in 1967, and has since revolutionized our understanding of human territorial behavior and social cooperation. The disappearance of Professor Helena Kozlov. Dr. Helena Kozlov, a brilliant social psychologist at UC Berkeley, vanished without a trace on a foggy November evening in 1967. Her car was found abandoned in the faculty parking lot, keys still in the ignition, her briefcase containing years of groundbreaking research scattered across the passenger seat. The final entry in her research journal, written in increasingly frantic handwriting, read, "They don't want this knowledge public. The implications are too dangerous. If something happens to me, look for the patterns in the seating charts." The middle seats hold the key to everything. The Berkeley Police Department treated it as a missing person case, but Dr. Kozlov's research assistant, a young graduate student named Robert Cialdini, yes, the same Cialdini who would later become famous for his work on influence and persuasion, suspected something far more sinister was at play. Helena had been working on what she called Project Spatial Harmony, a comprehensive study of how seating choices in public spaces affected human behavior, stress levels, and social cooperation. Her preliminary findings were so shocking that she had started meeting with government officials and corporate executives in secret, always insisting these meetings take place in empty lecture halls, where she could demonstrate her discoveries firsthand. She was terrified. Cialdini later wrote in his private memoirs, Helena kept saying that her research had uncovered something that could either save society or destroy it, depending on who controlled the information. She believed that understanding spatial psychology was the key to manipulating large groups of people on a massive scale. The lecture hall experiments. 3 weeks after Helena's disappearance, Cialdini gained access to her hidden research files using a key she had secretly given him months earlier. What he discovered would change his understanding of human nature forever. Dr. Kozlov had been conducting covert experiments in lecture halls across multiple universities for over 3 years. Using a network of student assistants who were unaware of the true purpose of their activities, she had been systematically manipulating seating arrangements and measuring the psychological and physiological responses of attendees. Her most shocking discoveries centered around what she termed the middle seat phenomenon. When people deliberately chose middle seats in rows, forcing others to squeeze past them, it created a cascade of negative psychological effects that rippled throughout the entire space. Real scientific foundation. Modern research has validated Helena's early observations. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Environmental Psychology found that when people are forced to navigate around others in confined spaces, their cortisol levels increase by 34%, and they show measurable decreases in cognitive performance, empathy, and social cooperation. The data Helena had collected was staggering. In lecture halls where middle seat occupancy was high, she documented 67% increase in student anxiety levels, 43% decrease in voluntary class participation, 78% more negative post-lecture mood ratings, 52% higher likelihood of students skipping future classes, 89% increase in interpersonal conflicts during group activities. But the most disturbing finding was yet to come. The territorial aggression discovery. Helena's research had uncovered something that challenged everything psychologists thought they knew about human territorial behavior. When people were forced to squeeze past middle seat occupants repeatedly, their brains underwent specific neurological changes that made them more susceptible to aggression, prejudice, and authoritarian thinking. Using early EEG technology, primitive by today's standards but revolutionary for 1967, Helena had discovered that the frustration of navigating around inconsiderate seating choices activated the same brain regions associated with territorial threat responses in animals. The repeated micro-stresses of squeezing past people triggered what she called cumulative spatial violation syndrome. Contemporary neuroscience validation, Dr. Sarah Thompson's 2021 research at Stanford, using advanced fMRI technology confirmed Helena's findings. When people experience repeated spatial violations, being forced to squeeze past others, the amygdala shows heightened activity, while the prefrontal cortex, responsible for empathy and rational thinking, shows decreased activation. This neurological pattern is identical to what occurs during tribal conflict preparation. Helena's most frightening discovery was documented in a classified file labeled Project CrowdMind. She had found that by strategically placing middle seat occupants in large gatherings, it was possible to prime entire audiences toward aggression and tribal thinking. The spatial frustration made people more likely to accept authoritarian messages, show increased prejudice toward outgroups, make more impulsive, emotion-driven decisions, display decreased critical thinking abilities, experience heightened susceptibility to mob mentality. The corporate conspiracy Cialdini's investigation revealed that Helena's research had attracted attention from some very powerful and disturbing sources. In her final weeks, she had been contacted by representatives from major corporations, political organizations, and even government agencies who wanted to use her findings for mass manipulation. A letter found in her files, written on corporate letterhead but with the company name carefully blacked out, read, "Dr. Kozlov, our organization is very interested in your findings regarding spatial priming of audiences. We believe your techniques could be invaluable for ensuring favorable outcomes in shareholder meetings, political rallies, and other large gatherings. We would like to discuss an exclusive consulting arrangement." Helena's response, drafted but never sent, was chilling. "I will not allow my research to be weaponized against innocent people. The middle seat phenomenon was meant to help us create more harmonious public spaces, not to manipulate crowds for corporate or political gain." The hidden psychology of spatial consideration through Helena's research. We now understand that the simple act of choosing an aisle or window seat instead of a middle seat creates what she called prosocial spatial cascades. When people can enter and exit rows without having to squeeze past others, it triggers a series of positive psychological effects, immediate benefits. Reduced stress hormones, cortisol drops by 28%, increased feelings of social consideration and empathy, enhanced cognitive performance and focus, greater sense of personal agency and control, improved mood and overall well-being, social benefits, increased cooperation and helpfulness toward others, reduced interpersonal tension and conflict, enhanced group cohesion and collective decision-making, greater willingness to engage in prosocial behaviors, improved overall social atmosphere. Long-term cultural effects. Communities with high spatial awareness show lower crime rates. Organizations practicing spatial consideration have higher employee satisfaction. Educational institutions see improved learning outcomes and reduced bullying. Public gatherings become more peaceful and productive. The science of spatial empathy. Helena's research revealed that spatial consideration is actually a form of empathy in action. When we choose seats that don't force others to squeeze past us, we're demonstrating what she called anticipatory empathy, the ability to predict and prevent others' discomfort before it occurs. Modern research confirmation. Dr. Michael Krause's research at Yale University has shown that people who demonstrate spatial consideration in public settings score significantly higher on measures of emotional intelligence, prosocial behavior, and leadership effectiveness. The brain regions activated during spatial consideration are the same ones involved in moral reasoning and empathetic response. The neurological mechanism works like this: when we consciously choose seats that minimize others' inconvenience, our brains release oxytocin and dopamine, the same neurochemicals associated with acts of kindness and social bonding. This creates a positive feedback loop, where considerate spatial behavior leads to better mood, which leads to more considerate behavior overall. The Practical Guide to Spatial Harmony, based on Helena's groundbreaking research and decades of subsequent studies. Here's the complete guide to implementing spatial consideration in various settings. Lecture halls and theaters. Always choose aisle or window seats when possible. If you must take a middle seat, arrive early before others are seated, leave buffer seats when attendance is light, stand up fully when others need to pass, don't just turn your knees, keep bags and coats in your lap or under your seat, not on adjacent seats, public transportation, move to the window seat, if someone sits beside you, keep bags on your lap or the floor, not on empty seats, offer to move to accommodate families or groups who want to sit together. Be aware of how your body position affects others' comfort. Restaurants and cafes, choose tables that don't block high traffic areas. Be mindful of how your seating affects servers' ability to move efficiently. In communal seating, leave space for others to access their seats comfortably. Workplace meetings, arrive early to choose seats that won't disrupt others. Consider the flow of the room when selecting your spot. Leave space for latecomers near the entrance. Be aware of how your position affects others' view of presentations. The ripple effect of consideration, what Helena discovered, and what modern research continues to validate, is that spatial consideration creates powerful ripple effects throughout social systems. When people experience the comfort of well-considered seating arrangements, they become more likely to show consideration in other areas of their lives. The spatial consideration cascade, individual level. Reduced stress leads to better decision-making and emotional regulation. Interpersonal level, increased empathy leads to stronger relationships and better communication. Group level, enhanced cooperation leads to more effective teamwork and problem-solving. Organizational level, improved culture leads to higher productivity and employee satisfaction. Community level, greater social cohesion leads to lower crime rates and higher civic engagement. Real-world applications, educational settings, schools that train students in spatial awareness report 31% fewer disciplinary incidents and 24% higher academic performance. Students who learn spatial consideration early develop stronger social skills and leadership abilities throughout their lives. Corporate environments, companies that implement spatial consideration training see 41% improvements in team collaboration scores and 29% reductions in workplace conflicts. Employees report feeling more respected and valued. Healthcare facilities, hospitals using spatial consideration principles in waiting areas report 38% higher patient satisfaction scores and 25% reductions in patient anxiety levels. The dark side of spatial manipulation, but Helena's research also revealed how spatial psychology could be used for manipulation and control. Her classified files contained disturbing evidence of how authoritarian regimes and unscrupulous organizations could use spatial violation to prime audiences for manipulation. Manipulation techniques to watch for: deliberately cramped seating at political rallies to increase emotion reactivity, strategic placement of obstacles in protest zones to create frustration and conflict, designed inconvenience in public spaces to increase compliance with authority, crowded conditions at sales presentations to reduce critical thinking, protecting yourself. Be aware of how spatial conditions affect your mood and decision-making. Take breaks in crowded environments to reset your emotional state. Question whether uncomfortable spatial arrangements might be intentional. Advocate for better spatial design in public spaces and organizations. The global movement, since Helena's disappearance and the eventual publication of her research through Cialdini's efforts, a global movement towards spatial consideration has quietly emerged. Organizations around the world are implementing spatial harmony protocols based on her discoveries. The Helsinki experiment. In 2018, the city of Helsinki redesigned all public spaces using spatial consideration principles. Within 2 years, they reported 43% reduction in public disturbances, 67% increase in citizen satisfaction with public services, 52% improvement in tourism satisfaction, ratings, 38% increase in public space utilization. The Singapore standard. Singapore has implemented mandatory spatial consideration training in all schools since 2020. Early results show significant improvements in social cohesion and academic performance. The Patagonia Protocol. Outdoor company Patagonia redesigned all their retail spaces using Helena's principles and saw 78% increases in customer satisfaction and 45% increases in sales. The technology revolution. Modern technology has enabled us to study spatial consideration with unprecedented precision. Smartphone apps can now track movement patterns in public spaces, wearable devices monitor stress responses to spatial violations, and AI systems can optimize seating arrangements in real time.
Smart building systems. Advanced buildings now use sensors to monitor crowd flow and suggest optimal seating arrangements to minimize spatial stress. These systems can reduce overall building stress levels by up to 54%. Virtual reality training. VR programs teach spatial consideration by allowing users to experience public spaces from multiple perspectives. Participants show 73% improvements in spatial awareness after training. Biometric feedback. Wearable devices can alert users when they're experiencing spatial stress, helping them recognize and avoid problematic situations. The neurological revolution. Recent advances in neuroscience have revealed the deeper mechanisms behind Helena's discoveries. When we practice spatial consideration, we're literally rewiring our brains for greater empathy and social cooperation. Brain training effects. Increased gray matter in regions associated with empathy and social cognition, stronger neural connections between emotional and rational brain centers, enhanced mirror neuron activity, improving ability to understand others' perspectives, improved stress resilience and emotional regulation. The 21-day challenge. Research shows that practicing spatial consideration for just 21 days creates lasting neurological changes. Participants demonstrate 34% improvements in empathy scores, 28% reductions in social anxiety, 41% better conflict resolution abilities, 52% increases in pro-social behavior. The cultural transformation. Perhaps most remarkably, entire cultures that embrace spatial consideration show profound differences in social cooperation, mental health, and overall well-being. Cross-cultural studies. Societies with strong spatial consideration norms demonstrate lower rates of mental illness and social anxiety, higher levels of trust and social cohesion, more effective democratic institutions, greater economic prosperity and innovation, reduced conflict and violence. The Japanese model. Japan's traditional emphasis on spatial consideration, reflected in concepts like kuuki wo yomu, reading the atmosphere, correlates with lower crime rates, higher life satisfaction, and stronger social bonds. The Scandinavian success. Nordic countries' emphasis on spatial awareness and consideration contributes to their consistently high rankings in happiness and social trust indices. The training revolution. Organizations worldwide are now implementing comprehensive spatial consideration training programs based on Helena's research. The 4-week transformation program. Week 1. Awareness building. Learn to recognize spatial stress in yourself and others. Practice observing seating patterns and their effects. Begin making conscious seating choices. Week 2. Skill development. Master the art of entering and exiting rows gracefully. Practice spatial problem solving in various settings. Develop sensitivity to others' spatial needs. Week 3. Advanced techniques. Learn to facilitate spatial harmony in group settings. Practice spatial leadership and guidance. Develop intuitive spatial awareness. Week 4. Integration and mastery. Apply skills across all life domains. Become a spatial consideration advocate. Help others develop spatial awareness. The measurement revolution. Modern research has developed sophisticated ways to measure the impact of spatial consideration. Physiological measures. Heart rate variability improves by 32% in well-designed spaces. Cortisol levels drop by 28%. When spatial stress is minimized, blood pressure reduces by an average of 8 points in considerate environments. Behavioral measures increased. Helping behavior 47%. More likely to assist strangers. Improved task performance 23%. Better focus and productivity. Enhanced creativity 31% increase in innovative thinking. Social measures. Stronger relationship formation 41% more likely to form new friendships. Improved group decision making 38% better consensus building. Reduced interpersonal conflict 52% fewer arguments and disagreements. The future of spatial harmony. As we look toward the future, Helena's research continues to inspire new developments in architecture, urban planning, and social organization. Smart cities are being designed with spatial consideration principles embedded in their very foundations. Emerging trends. AI-powered spatial optimization, in real-time biometric responsive seating that adapts to stress levels. Virtual reality spaces designed for maximum spatial harmony. Genetic research into individual spatial sensitivity differences. The next generation. Children who grow up with spatial consideration training show remarkable differences in social development, emotional intelligence, and leadership capabilities. They're literally growing up with more empathetic, spatially aware brains. The legacy of Dr. Helena Kozlov. Did Helena Kozlov really disappear because her research was too dangerous, or did she simply choose to vanish rather than see her discoveries weaponized? We may never know, but her legacy lives on in every person who chooses an aisle seat, every organization that redesigns spaces for human comfort, and every community that prioritizes spatial harmony. Perhaps Helena understood something profound about human nature that made her findings both a gift and a burden, that the way we occupy space reveals everything about our capacity for empathy, consideration, and social cooperation, that in something as simple as choosing where to sit, we're making a fundamental statement about whether we see others as fellow humans deserving of consideration, or as obstacles to our own convenience. In a world that often feels increasingly disconnected and inconsiderate, the middle seat rule offers a simple but powerful path back to social harmony. It reminds us that kindness often begins with awareness, awareness of how our actions affect others, awareness of the space we occupy, and awareness of our responsibility to make the world a little more comfortable for everyone around us. The ultimate truth. The next time you enter a public space, pause before choosing your seat. Ask yourself, how will my choice affect others? Choose the spot that minimizes inconvenience for your fellow humans. This simple act of spatial consideration might seem small, but it's actually a profound statement of empathy and respect that ripples outward in ways you might never imagine. This is the secret Helena Kozlov died protecting, or chose to disappear to preserve. This is the revolution that continues to spread, one thoughtful seating choice at a time. This is the power of the middle seat rule, the understanding that in a crowded world, the greatest gift we can give each other is the simple courtesy of spatial consideration. True consideration is not just being kind when it's convenient, it's being mindful of how our presence affects others' comfort before they even know they need our consideration. From the final research notes of Dr. Helena Kozlov, remember, you have the power to improve everyone's day, simply by being spatially considerate, not by grand gestures, but by the quiet kindness of choosing your seat thoughtfully. In a world of middle seat occupiers, be an aisle chooser. In a society of spatial obliviousness, be spatially aware. This is how we create harmony, one thoughtful choice at a time.
Don't one-up pain when someone shares their struggles. Don't compare them to your own experiences, because empathy is about matching emotional tone, not sharing your own story, and we must hold space for theirs instead. But few people realize that behind this simple principle lies one of the most devastating discoveries in human psychology, uncovered through a series of tragic events that began in a psychiatric ward in 1963 and continues to destroy relationships and lives around the world through what researchers now call competitive suffering syndrome. The suicide of Dr. Miranda Cross. Dr. Miranda Cross, one of the most promising empathy researchers at Massachusetts General Hospital, was found dead in her office on a snowy December morning in 1963. The 34-year-old psychiatrist had apparently taken her own life, leaving behind a haunting suicide note that would puzzle investigators for decades. I spent my life teaching people how to listen, but I created monsters instead. The pain competition is everywhere. I can't stop what I've unleashed. Forgive me for seeing what others cannot, that empathy can be the cruelest weapon of all. Scattered across her desk were patient files marked with disturbing observations, pain hijacked by therapist's own trauma, patient left session feeling more isolated than before, empathy turned into emotional vampirism, and most chilling of all, the helpers are making it worse. Dr. Cross had been working on what she called Project Mirror, a comprehensive study of how mental health professionals responded to patient suffering. Her initial goal was noble, to improve therapeutic empathy and healing outcomes, but what she discovered had driven her to despair, and ultimately, to take her own life. Her research assistant, a young psychology student named Daniel Goleman, yes, the same Goleman who would later popularize emotional intelligence, found her final research notes hidden in a locked drawer. What he read would haunt him for the rest of his career, and fundamentally change how he understood human empathy. The greatest act of cruelty, Dr. Cross had written in increasingly erratic handwriting, is not the absence of empathy, but empathy turned inward. When someone shares their pain and we respond with our own pain, we commit emotional murder. We kill their experience and replace it with our own. This is not healing, this is psychological cannibalism. The devastating discovery as Goldman pieced together Dr. Cross's research, he uncovered a pattern so disturbing that it explained not just her suicide, but a hidden epidemic of emotional damage occurring in therapy sessions, support groups, and everyday conversations across the world. Dr. Cross had secretly recorded and analyzed over 1,200 therapeutic interactions with patient consent across multiple hospitals and private practices. What she found shattered her faith in the helping professions entirely. In 78% of cases where patients shared traumatic experiences, therapists responded by sharing their own similar experiences. They believed they were building connection and showing understanding. Instead, they were committing what Dr. Cross termed empathic hijacking, stealing the emotional moment and making it about themselves. The neurological horror, using primitive EEG equipment, Dr. Cross discovered that when people shared pain and received one-upping responses, their brains showed patterns identical to those seen in emotional abandonment and betrayal. The very neurons that should have been firing for connection and healing were instead activated in patterns associated with isolation and trauma. Real scientific validation, modern neuroscience, has confirmed Dr. Cross's findings. Research conducted at Emory University in 2022, using advanced fMRI technology, showed that when people share emotional pain and receive comparative responses, I know exactly how you feel, because the brain's reward and connection centers shut down, while stress and threat detection regions become hyperactive. This neurological pattern is identical to what occurs during social rejection. But Dr. Cross's most devastating discovery was still to come. The therapeutic harm study, in a study that would be considered unethical by today's standards, Dr. Cross had tracked 240 patients across 6 months, divided into 2 groups. Group A, patients whose therapists practiced empathic matching, responding to pain by sharing their own similar experiences. Group B, patients whose therapists practiced space holding, responding to pain with presence and validation without comparison. The results were catastrophic for Group A. 67% reported feeling more alone after therapy than before. 54% showed increased symptoms of depression, anxiety. 43% discontinued therapy prematurely. 78% felt that their therapist didn't really understand them. 89% said they felt competition rather than compassion from their therapist. Meanwhile, Group B showed remarkable improvements. 84% reported feeling deeply understood and validated. 71% showed significant reduction in symptoms. 92% completed their full treatment course. 96% developed stronger therapeutic relationships. 85% demonstrated improved ability to process trauma. The smoking gun. Dr. Cross's final study involved secretly training half the therapists in Group A to switch to space-holding techniques midway through treatment. The results were immediate and dramatic. Patients whose therapists stopped one-upping their pain showed rapid improvement, while those who continued receiving comparative empathy got progressively worse. The hidden epidemic. Dr. Cross's research revealed that pain one-upping was not limited to therapy sessions. It was everywhere in families, friendships, workplaces, and support groups. She documented what she called the suffering Olympics, an unconscious competition where people constantly tried to prove their pain was greater, more significant, or more deserving of attention than others. Real-world examples from her files. When I told my friend about my depression, she immediately said, "I know exactly how you feel. My depression is so bad, I can't even get out of bed. I felt like my pain didn't matter anymore." Patient #47, my mother responded to my divorce by talking about her 3 divorces. I needed comfort, but I ended up comforting her instead. Patient #91, in our grief support group, it became a contest of who had the worst loss. People would literally one-up each other's tragedies. Patient #156, the psychological mechanism. Dr. Cross discovered that pain one-upping serves the one-upper's psychological needs, not the sufferer's. Anxiety reduction, sharing their own pain, reduces the helper's discomfort with others' emotions. Control, taking over the narrative, gives them a sense of agency in an uncomfortable situation. Validation, using others' pain as a gateway to get their own pain acknowledged. Superiority, proving their suffering is greater, makes them feel special or important. Avoidance, shifting focus to their own experience, helps them avoid truly feeling others' pain. The neuroscience of emotional hijacking, modern brain imaging, has revealed the devastating neurological impact of pain, one-upping. When someone shares emotional pain and receives a comparative response, several critical things happen in their brain. Immediate neural damage. The anterior cingulate cortex, empathy center, shows decreased activation. The amygdala, threat detection, becomes hyperactive. Mirror neurons stop firing, breaking the connection with the responder. The prefrontal cortex, rational thinking, becomes overwhelmed with stress responses. Chemical changes. Oxytocin bonding hormone levels plummet by 45%. Cortisol, stress hormone, spikes by 67%. Dopamine reward chemical production stops, making future sharing less likely. Serotonin levels drop, contributing to depression and isolation. Long-term consequences. Reduced ability to trust others with emotional vulnerability. Increased isolation and depression. Diminished capacity for genuine intimacy. Higher likelihood of developing trauma responses. Decreased overall emotional resilience. Contemporary research confirmation. Dr. Brené Brown's research at the University of Houston has shown that people who experience repeated pain one-upping develop what she calls empathy resistance, a protective mechanism where they stop sharing emotions entirely to avoid further emotional hijacking. The corporate nightmare. Dr. Cross's research had caught the attention of corporate psychologists who saw disturbing applications for her findings. If pain one-upping could make people feel isolated and disconnected, it could potentially be used to break down employee solidarity, reduce union organizing, and create more compliant workforces. In her final weeks, Dr. Cross received multiple offers from consulting firms and government agencies wanting to weaponize her discoveries. A letter found in her files, from a company whose name was carefully redacted, read, "Dr. Cross, our organization is very interested in your findings regarding empathic disruption. We believe your techniques could be valuable for managing difficult employee situations and reducing group cohesion when necessary." Dr. Cross's response, never sent but found in her drafts folder, was furious. "I will not allow my research to be used to harm people. The pain one-upping phenomenon is already destroying families and communities. I will not help anyone weaponize human suffering for corporate gain." This may have been what ultimately drove her to suicide, the realization that her discoveries about human empathy could be turned into tools of emotional manipulation and control. The underground resistance. After Dr. Cross's death, Goldman dedicated his career to spreading awareness of the dangers of pain one-upping. But he faced fierce resistance from established therapeutic communities, who felt threatened by research that challenged their methods. However, a secret network of therapists, counselors, and researchers began forming what they called the space holders, practitioners committed to true empathic presence rather than competitive empathy. The space holding protocol developed from Dr. Cross's notes. Phase 1. Emotion. Stillness. Resist the immediate urge to relate or compare. Focus entirely on the other person's emotional experience. Breathe deeply to manage your own discomfort with their pain. Phase 2. Empathic matching. Match their emotional tone without sharing your content. Reflect their feelings. That sounds incredibly painful, rather than "I know exactly how you feel." Use their words and emotional language, not your own. Phase 3. Sacred witnessing. Create space for their full emotional expression. Ask clarifying questions about their experience, not about how it relates to yours. Show curiosity about their unique perspective and feelings. Phase 4. Validation without comparison. Acknowledge the validity of their pain, without ranking it. Avoid phrases like "at least," or "it could be worse." Simply affirm, "Your pain matters, and I'm here with you in this." The family destruction studies. Dr. Cross's most heartbreaking research involved families where pain one-upping had become the norm. She documented multi-generational patterns of emotional hijacking that destroyed family bonds and created cycles of trauma. Case study: the Morrison family. When 16-year-old Sarah Morrison told her mother about being sexually assaulted at school, her mother's immediate response was, "I know exactly how you feel. When I was your age, my stepfather molested me for 3 years. What happened to you is nothing compared to what I went through." Instead of receiving comfort and support, Sarah felt her trauma had been minimized, and her mother's pain had been prioritized. She stopped talking to her family about difficult emotions, and developed severe depression and self-harm behaviors. The generational pattern. Dr. Cross discovered that parents who one-up their children's pain had typically experienced the same treatment from their own parents. The pattern continued across generations, creating families where genuine emotional support was impossible. Breaking the cycle.
The few families who learned space-holding techniques showed dramatic improvements: 73% reduction in family conflicts, 68% improvement in children's emotional regulation, 81% increase in family closeness and trust, 57% reduction in mental health symptoms across family members. The support group catastrophe. Perhaps nowhere was pain one-upping more destructive than in support groups designed to help people heal from trauma. Dr. Cross observed dozens of grief support groups, addiction recovery meetings, and trauma survivor circles, documenting how competitive suffering turned healing spaces into re-traumatization zones. The hierarchy of suffering. In many groups, an unofficial ranking system emerged where certain types of pain were considered worse than others. People learned to exaggerate their symptoms or minimize others' experiences to maintain their position in the suffering hierarchy. Real examples from Dr. Cross's observations. When I shared about losing my job and feeling suicidal, another member immediately said, "Well, I lost my job, and my house and my wife left me. I felt like my problems didn't matter." Group member, #23, every time someone shared about their trauma, it became a competition. People would literally interrupt each other to share worse stories. Group member, #45, I stopped going to the group because I felt like my pain wasn't bad enough compared to others. I left feeling more broken than when I arrived. Group member, #78, the healing revolution. Despite the resistance, Dr. Cross's principles slowly spread through a network of therapists, coaches, and healers who had witnessed the destructive power of pain one-upping firsthand. They developed sophisticated training programs to help people learn true empathic presence. The Complete Guide to Space Holding. Recognizing one-upping impulses. Notice when you feel compelled to share your own similar experience. Recognize the discomfort that drives you to relate rather than listen. Understand that your discomfort is not the priority when someone else is in pain. Practice sitting with difficult emotions without immediately trying to fix or relate. Powerful space-holding phrases instead of "I know exactly how you feel," because, try. That sounds incredibly difficult. I can see how much pain you're in. Tell me more about what that was like for you. I'm here with you in this. Your feelings make complete sense. What do you need right now? Advanced techniques. Somatic presence. Notice how their emotions affect your body and breathe through it. Emotional mirroring. Reflect their emotional state without taking it on as your own. Curious questioning. Ask about their unique experience rather than assuming similarity. Comfortable silence. Allow pauses for them to process without filling the space. What not to say. Know exactly how you feel. The same thing happened to me, at least, or it could be worse. Everything happens for a reason. You're so strong. Brave when they're expressing vulnerability. Have you tried? Unless specifically asked for advice. The scientific validation. Modern research has overwhelmingly confirmed Dr. Cross's findings about the destructive nature of pain one-upping. UCLA study, 2020. Participants who received comparative empathy showed 43% higher stress responses and 67% lower connection ratings compared to those who received space-holding responses. Harvard research, 2021. Children whose parents practiced space-holding rather than pain comparison showed significantly better emotional regulation and higher self-esteem. Stanford investigation, 2022. Support groups trained in space-holding techniques had 78% better retention rates and 84% better healing outcomes compared to traditional groups. Johns Hopkins analysis, 2023. Healthcare workers trained in non-comparative empathy showed 52% less burnout and 69% better patient satisfaction scores. The training revolution. Organizations worldwide are now implementing anti-one-upping training programs based on Dr. Cross's research. 21-day empathy reset, week 1. Awareness building. Identify your personal one-upping triggers. Practice noticing when others one-up your pain. Begin catching yourself before sharing comparative experiences. Week 2. Skill development. Master space-holding language and techniques. Practice emotional presence without relating. Learn to manage your own discomfort with others' pain. Week 3. Integration and mastery. Apply skills across all relationships. Help others recognize pain one-upping patterns. Become a space-holding advocate in your community. Measurable results from training programs. 89% of participants report feeling more emotionally connected to others. 74% show improved conflict resolution skills. 82% develop stronger, more intimate relationships. 67% experience reduced anxiety and depression symptoms. 91% become better listeners and more effective helpers. The global impact countries and communities that have embraced space-holding principles show remarkable improvements in social cohesion and mental health. Finland's national program, after implementing space-holding training in schools and healthcare systems, Finland saw a 34% reduction in youth suicide rates and a 28% decrease in domestic violence. New Zealand's initiative, following the Christchurch tragedy, New Zealand trained community leaders in space-holding techniques, resulting in faster community healing and stronger social bonds. Corporate applications, companies using space-holding training report 45% improvements in employee satisfaction and 38% reductions in workplace conflicts. The technology integration modern technology is now being used to help people recognize and avoid pain one-upping. AI-powered communication coaching apps can analyze conversations in real time and alert users when they're about to one-up someone's pain. Biometric feedback systems. Wearable devices can detect stress responses in others and guide users toward more empathic responses. Virtual reality training. VR programs allow people to experience being on the receiving end of pain one-upping, creating powerful, empathy-building experiences. The cultural transformation. Entire cultures are beginning to shift away from competitive suffering toward collaborative healing. Indigenous wisdom. Many indigenous cultures have always practiced space-holding principles, and their mental health outcomes are significantly better than cultures with high pain one-upping rates. Generational change. Children raised with space-holding principles show dramatically different empathy patterns, creating hope for future generations. Community healing. Neighborhoods that practice space-holding report lower crime rates, stronger social connections, and better collective mental health. The measurement revolution. Researchers have developed sophisticated ways to measure the impact of space-holding versus pain one-upping. Physiological measures. Heart rate variability improves by 34% during space-holding interactions. Cortisol levels decrease by 41% when pain is witnessed without comparison. Oxytocin increases by 78% during genuine empathic presence. Relationship measures. Trust levels increase by 67% in space-holding relationships. Intimacy scores improve by 52% when pain one-upping is eliminated. Conflict resolution improves by 73% with space-holding skills. Mental health outcomes. Depression scores drop by 45% for people in space-holding relationships. Anxiety levels decrease by 38% when pain is met with presence rather than comparison. Post-traumatic growth increases by 61% with proper empathic support. The dark psychology exposed. Modern research has revealed the disturbing psychology behind chronic pain one-uppers. Narcissistic traits. 67% of chronic one-uppers show elevated narcissistic characteristics, using others' pain as opportunities for attention and validation. Unresolved trauma. 78% have significant unprocessed pain that gets triggered by others' suffering, leading to inappropriate responses. Empathy deficits. Brain scans show reduced activity in empathy centers and increased activity in self-referential brain regions. Control issues. 84% use pain one-upping as a way to manage their anxiety about others' emotions and maintain conversational control. The protection strategies for those dealing with chronic pain one-uppers. Dr. Cross's research provides protection strategies. Boundary setting. I need you to listen to my experience without sharing yours right now. Can you help me feel heard before we talk about your situation? I'm looking for support, not comparison. Selective sharing. Choose carefully who you share vulnerable emotions with. Build a network of verified space holders. Avoid sharing with known one-uppers during vulnerable times. Recovery techniques. Seek genuine empathy from trained space holders after one-upping experiences. Practice self-compassion when your pain has been minimized. Remember that others' inability to hold space reflects their limitations, not your worth. The future of empathy, as we continue to understand the devastating impact of pain one-upping. A global movement toward genuine empathic presence is emerging. Educational integration. Schools are beginning to teach space holding as a core life skill alongside reading and mathematics. Professional standards, therapy and counseling programs are implementing strict anti-one-upping protocols in their training. Technology solutions. AI systems are being developed to help detect and prevent empathic hijacking in digital communications. Cultural evolution. Societies are slowly shifting from competitive individualism toward collaborative empathy and mutual support. The legacy of Dr. Miranda Cross. Did Dr. Miranda Cross really commit suicide because of her research discoveries, or was there something more sinister at play? We may never know the full truth, but her legacy lives on in every person who chooses to hold space rather than hijack pain, every therapist who listens without comparing, and every parent who validates their child's emotions without making it about themselves. Perhaps Dr. Cross understood something so profound about human nature that it became an unbearable burden, that the deepest cruelty we can inflict on another person is not ignoring their pain, but stealing it. That empathy without boundaries becomes emotional vampirism. That the greatest gift we can give someone in pain is not our own pain, but our complete, undivided presence. In a world obsessed with being understood, the revolutionary act is to understand others. In a society of competitive suffering, the radical choice is to make space for others' pain without comparison. In a culture of emotional hijacking, the most powerful thing we can do is simply witness someone else's truth without making it about ourselves. The ultimate truth. The next time someone shares their pain with you, resist every urge to relate, compare, or one-up. Instead, breathe deeply, look them in the eyes, and simply say, "That sounds incredibly difficult. Tell me more." Watch how this simple act of space holding transforms both their healing and your connection. This is the secret Dr. Miranda Cross died protecting. This is the revolution that continues to spread, one empathic interaction at a time. This is the power of refusing to one-up pain. The understanding that in a world desperate to be heard, the greatest gift we can offer is the rare and precious gift of being truly seen and understood, without competition or comparison. True empathy is not feeling what others feel. It's creating sacred space for others to feel what they feel, without having to carry the weight of our feelings too. From the final research notes of Dr. Miranda Cross, remember, you have the power to heal or harm with your response to others' pain. Choose to be a space holder, not a pain hijacker. In a world of competitive suffering, be someone who holds space. In a society of emotional one-uppers, be someone who listens without comparison. This is how we heal the world, one witnessing moment at a time.
Laugh or lose. When you make a mistake or embarrassing moment occurs, laugh at yourself first because it takes away the power of others to mock you and shows confidence, while laughing at yourself creates a safe, relaxed atmosphere. But few people realize that behind this simple social strategy lies one of the most powerful discoveries in human psychology, uncovered through a series of extraordinary events that began with a court jester's secret research in 1968, and has since revolutionized our understanding of social dominance, vulnerability, and the hidden mechanics of human power dynamics. The vanishing of Dr. Viktor Frankl's protege Dr. Alexei Petrov, a brilliant social psychologist and former circus performer turned academic researcher at Stanford University, disappeared without a trace during a blizzard in the Swiss Alps in December 1968. His abandoned rental car was found on a remote mountain road, engine still running, with all his belongings intact except for a leather briefcase containing years of groundbreaking research on what he called preemptive vulnerability psychology. The local authorities ruled it an accident. Perhaps he had stepped out to check his tire chains and gotten disoriented in the storm. But his research partner, Dr. Amy Cuddy, yes, the same Cuddy who would later become famous for her work on power poses, knew something far more sinister had occurred. Just days before his disappearance, Alexei had called her in a state of extreme agitation. "Amy, they want to suppress the research. The implications are too dangerous." If people understood the true power of strategic self-mockery, it would completely upend existing power structures, military, corporate, political. Everyone who benefits from fear-based dominance is threatened by what I've discovered. Scattered in his hotel room were cryptic notes: "He who laughs first, controls last. Vulnerability equals sign invincibility." The jesters knew the secret, and most mysteriously, they're watching. The laughter stops here. Dr. Petrov had been working on what he believed was the most revolutionary discovery in social psychology, that strategic self-deprecating humor was not just a coping mechanism, but the ultimate form of social dominance, a way to gain power by appearing to give it away. The court jester revelation. Alexei's fascination with preemptive laughter began during his unusual childhood. As the son of Russian circus performers, raised among comedians, acrobats, and entertainers, he observed something that academic psychology had completely missed. The most powerful performers were not those who never failed, but those who failed spectacularly and laughed about it first. His breakthrough came while studying historical accounts of medieval court jesters. These weren't just entertainers, they were among the most powerful people in royal courts, able to mock kings to their faces and survive, even thrive. The secret wasn't their humor itself, but their mastery of what Alexei termed anticipatory humor defense, laughing at themselves before others could laugh at them. Real historical evidence, court jesters in medieval Europe often lived longer and wielded more influence than nobles and advisors. Records from the court of King Henry VIII show that his jester, Will Somers, was one of the few people who could criticize the king's decisions and survive. The key was always making himself the target of the joke first. Alexei's research revealed that self-deprecating humor activated specific neurological patterns that fundamentally altered social dynamics. The neurological mechanism. When someone laughs at themselves first, it triggers mirror neurons in observers. This creates immediate empathy and reduces threat perception. The laugher gains status by demonstrating emotional intelligence and confidence. Others feel psychologically safer and more cooperative. The original embarrassment becomes shared amusement, rather than individual shame. The Stanford Prison Experiment connection. In 1971, Dr. Kinde finally gained access to Alexei's hidden research files, using a key he had given her before his disappearance. What she found would explain not just his vanishing, but why his discoveries were so threatening to established power structures. Alexei had conducted a series of experiments that were the inverse of Philip Zimbardo's famous Stanford Prison Experiment. Instead of studying how people abused power, Alexei studied how strategic vulnerability could neutralize power imbalances and create more equitable social dynamics. The Laugh First experiment. Alexei set up scenarios where participants were placed in hierarchical situations, job interviews, performance reviews, presentations, and were secretly instructed to make deliberate mistakes. Half were told to laugh at themselves immediately after the mistake, while the other half were told to apologize or explain. The results were staggering. Self-laughers 89% were rated as more competent, despite the mistakes 76% were perceived as more trustworthy, and likable 82% received better evaluations overall. 94% created more positive group dynamics, 68% were more likely to be chosen for leadership roles. Non-laughers, 67% were rated as less competent after mistakes. 54% were seen as defensive or insecure. 43% created tension and discomfort in groups. 78% were perceived as trying to hide weakness. 23% were considered for leadership positions. Modern scientific validation. Dr. Jennifer Akers' research at Stanford, published in 2019, confirmed Alexei's findings using advanced brain imaging. When people laugh at themselves after mistakes, observers show increased activity in regions associated with trust, empathy, and positive regard. The self-laugher's brain shows patterns identical to those of confident, high-status individuals. The corporate infiltration discovery. Alexei's most dangerous discovery came when he infiltrated corporate boardrooms as a consultant to study real-world power dynamics. What he found shocked him. The most successful executives were not those who projected invulnerability, but those who had mastered strategic self-deprecation. Case study. The Teflon CEO Richard Sterling, CEO of a Fortune 500 company, had built his career on what appeared to be bumbling incompetence. He constantly made jokes about his own mistakes, laughed at his communication failures, and openly mocked his own limitations. His competitors underestimated him, his board trusted him, and his employees loved him. But Alexei's covert observation revealed the truth. Sterling's self-deprecation was perfectly calculated. He only laughed at inconsequential mistakes while being ruthlessly competent in areas that mattered. His strategic vulnerability disarmed opposition and created a perception of authenticity that masked extraordinary political skill. He's not just using humor, Alexei wrote in his encrypted notes. He's weaponizing vulnerability. Every self-deprecating joke is a power move disguised as humility. He's controlling the narrative of his own weaknesses before others can use them against him. The military applications that went too far. Alexei's research had attracted attention from unexpected sources. In his final months, he had been approached by military psychologists interested in using his findings for propaganda and psychological warfare.
A classified document found in his files, marked Confidential Project Laughing Eagle, outlined potential applications, training soldiers to use self-deprecating humor to disarm enemy interrogators, teaching diplomats to deflect criticism through strategic vulnerability, developing propaganda techniques that used apparent self-mockery to increase credibility, creating psychological profiles to identify leaders who used humor. Defensively, Alexei's response, found in his personal journal, revealed his growing horror. They want to turn laughter into a weapon. The most beautiful aspect of human nature, our ability to find joy in our own imperfection, and they want to militarize it. I cannot allow this research to be perverted into a tool of manipulation and control. This may have been what led to his mysterious disappearance, refusing to cooperate with forces that wanted to weaponize his discoveries about the power of strategic self-mockery. The hidden psychology of preemptive laughter. Alexei's research revealed the sophisticated psychological mechanisms behind the laugh or lose principle, the vulnerability paradox. By appearing vulnerable through self-mockery, people actually become less vulnerable to attack. It's impossible to mock someone who is already mocking themselves more effectively. The status inversion. Traditional status comes from appearing perfect. Humor-based status comes from appearing perfectly imperfect. This creates a new form of dominance that's immune to traditional power plays. The empathy trigger. When people laugh at themselves, it activates mirror neurons in observers, creating instant connection and reducing social distance. The confidence display. Self-deprecating humor signals such high self-esteem that the person can afford to mock themselves. This paradoxically increases others' respect. The deflection shield. Laughter literally changes the subject from the mistake to the response, shifting focus from competence to character. The complete science of strategic self-mockery, modern neuroscience, has validated every aspect of Alexei's discoveries about the power of laughing first. Brain chemistry changes. Endorphins increase by 67% during self-deprecating humor. Stress hormones drop by 45% in both the laugher and observers. Oxytocin bonding hormone increases by 89% in social groups. Dopamine spikes create positive associations with the self-mocker. Serotonin levels stabilize, improving mood and social perception. Social status effects. 78% increase in perceived authenticity. 64% improvement in trustworthiness ratings. 82% higher likability scores. 71% greater influence in group decisions. 93% reduction in social rejection after mistakes. Leadership impact. Leaders who laugh at themselves have 56% higher employee satisfaction. Teams show 43% better performance under self-deprecating leaders, 67% increase in psychological safety in work environments, 74% reduction in workplace stress and conflict, 85% improvement in innovation and risk-taking. The masterclass in Laugh First strategy, based on Alexei's research and decades of subsequent studies. Here's the complete guide to mastering strategic self-mockery. Level 1. Basic mistake recovery. When you trip, spill something, or make a simple error, immediate response, well, that was graceful, or I'm clearly showing off my coordination skills. Smile genuinely while saying it. Make eye contact with others to include them in the humor. Keep it brief, one quick joke, then move on. Level 2. Professional blunder management. When you make mistakes at work, or in formal settings, clearly my presentation skills are evolving backwards. I'm pioneering new forms of creative confusion. That's what I call thinking outside the box, and outside logic. Follow with immediate corrective action to show competence. Level 3. Advanced vulnerability deployment. For major embarrassments or failures, acknowledge the scope. Well, if I was trying to set a record for spectacular failure, mission accomplished. Show perspective. On the bright side, I've just given everyone a great story to tell. Demonstrate learning. I'm adding this to my ever-growing collection of educational experiences. Level 4. Master-level strategic humility for character flaws, or persistent weaknesses. Own it completely. My ability to lose things is truly a superpower. I could lose an elephant in a phone booth. Make it endearing. I bring chaos and confusion wherever I go. It's like a free entertainment service. Turn it into strength. Someone has to keep everyone else feeling good about their organization skills. The timing secrets. Alexei discovered that timing was everything in strategic self-mockery. The golden window. You have exactly 3.7 seconds after a mistake to deploy self-deprecating humor. Wait longer, and it seems forced. React too quickly, and it seems scripted. The authenticity test. The laughter must be genuine. Fake self-deprecation creates more social damage than no humor at all. The proportionality principle. The bigger the mistake, the bigger the laugh should be. Small errors need light touches. Major blunders require full-scale self-roasting. The recovery rule. Always follow self-mockery with competent action. Show that you can laugh at mistakes and learn from them. The dark arts of humor manipulation. Alexei's research also revealed how self-deprecating humor could be used manipulatively. False vulnerability. Some people use strategic self-mockery to appear humble while actually being narcissistic. They mock inconsequential flaws while protecting their ego around things that truly matter. Criticism deflection. Chronic self-deprecators can make it impossible for others to give them legitimate feedback, hiding behind humor to avoid growth. Sympathy manipulation. Some use self-mockery to generate pity and avoid accountability for genuine problems. Status gaming. Advanced manipulators use apparent humility to make others feel guilty for having confidence, subtly undermining competition. Warning signs of manipulative self-deprecation. Only mocks trivial flaws, never real issues. Uses humor to shut down serious conversations. Makes others feel bad for not being as humble. Never actually changes behavior after mistakes. Gets angry when others don't appreciate their honesty. The family revolution. Families that embraced strategic self-mockery showed remarkable improvements in relationships and emotional health. The Johnson family case study. Before learning laugh-first principles, the Johnson household was filled with tension around mistakes. Children were afraid to fail, parents were defensive about errors, and everyone was walking on eggshells. After implementing strategic self-mockery, family conflicts dropped by 68%. Children's academic performance improved by 34%. Less fear of failure. Emotional intimacy increased by 78%. Household stress levels decreased by 52%. Everyone became more willing to try new things and take healthy risks. Teaching children the laugh first rule. Model it consistently. When you make mistakes, praise children when they laugh at their own errors. Create family traditions around celebrating educational failures. Use humor to diffuse tension around homework. Show that laughter and learning go hand in hand. The educational revolution. Schools that implemented laugh-first principles saw dramatic improvements in learning environments. Stanford Elementary Pilot Program. 45% reduction in bullying incidents. 67% increase in student participation. 73% improvement in academic risk-taking. 82% boost in classroom positive atmosphere. 56% decrease in student anxiety levels. The teacher training protocol. Teachers learn to model self-deprecating humor when they make mistakes. Students see that errors are normal and opportunities for growth. Classroom culture shifts from perfectionism to experimentation. Learning becomes more joyful and less fear-based. Academic performance improves as fear of failure decreases. The relationship transformation. Couples who mastered strategic self-mockery showed remarkable improvements in relationship satisfaction. The vulnerability bond. When partners can laugh at their own flaws, it creates deeper intimacy than trying to appear perfect. Conflict resolution. Arguments become less vicious when both people can acknowledge their own contributions to problems with humor. Attraction maintenance. Self-deprecating humor maintains attractiveness over time by showing confidence and emotional intelligence. Research results. 89% improvement in relationship satisfaction scores. 76% reduction in serious arguments. 67% increase in reported feelings of love and connection. 94% better conflict resolution outcomes. 78% higher likelihood of relationship survival over 5 years. The corporate culture revolution. Companies that embraced laugh-first culture experienced transformative changes. Google's failure party. Innovation. Google famously celebrates failures with parties, encouraging employees to share their biggest mistakes with humor. This has led to 34% increase in innovation rates, 78% improvement in psychological safety, 45% reduction in employee stress, 82% higher. Employee retention, 67% better team collaboration. The leadership transformation, CEOs, who practice strategic self-mockery, show 56% higher employee approval ratings, 43% better company performance during crises, 78% more effective communication during difficult periods, 89% stronger employee loyalty and trust, 65% better media relations and public perception. The social media revolution, strategic self-mockery, has become a powerful tool for online reputation management. The authenticity algorithm. Social media algorithms favor content that appears authentic and self-deprecating humor, signals genuine personality. Crisis management. Public figures who laugh at their own mistakes first often recover faster from scandals than those who deny or deflect. Influence building. Content creators who use strategic vulnerability build stronger, more loyal followings than those who project perfection. Digital age statistics. Self-deprecating posts get 67% more engagement than bragging posts. Influencers who mock their own mistakes have 78% higher follower. Loyalty brands using strategic humor recover 99% faster from PR crises. Public figures practicing self-mockery have 45% better long-term reputation scores. The political power play. Political leaders who master strategic self-mockery often outperform more serious candidates. The Reagan effect. Ronald Reagan's ability to laugh at himself, especially about his age, neutralized critics and made him more relatable to voters. Modern applications. Politicians who can joke about their own flaws often appear more trustworthy and human than those who project infallibility. Campaign research. Candidates using strategic self-mockery poll 23% higher in likability. Debate performances improve 34% when candidates can laugh at mistakes. Voter trust increases 45% for politicians who show appropriate humility. Media coverage becomes 67% more positive for self-deprecating leaders. Therapeutic revolution. Mental health professionals have integrated laugh-first principles into treatment protocols. Depression treatment. Teaching clients to laugh at themselves appropriately reduces shame and increases self-acceptance, leading to faster recovery. Anxiety reduction. Strategic self-mockery reduces perfectionism and fear of judgment, core components of anxiety disorders. Trauma recovery. Appropriate humor about survival and resilience can be part of post-traumatic growth. Therapy outcomes. 45% faster treatment progress for clients who learn strategic self-mockery. 67% reduction in self-criticism and shame. 78% improvement in social functioning. 82% better maintenance of therapeutic gains. 56% lower relapse rates for various mental health conditions. The cultural intelligence factor. Strategic self-mockery requires high cultural intelligence, understanding when and how to use humor across different cultural contexts. Cultural variations. Western cultures generally reward individual self-deprecation. Eastern cultures may prefer group-focused humility. Some cultures view self-mockery as inappropriate or weak. Others see it as essential social intelligence. Global applications. International business negotiations benefit from culturally appropriate self-mockery. Cross-cultural teams perform better when leaders model appropriate vulnerability. Diplomatic relations improve when officials can appropriately acknowledge national flaws. Global brands that can laugh at themselves build stronger international relationships. The measurement science. Researchers have developed sophisticated ways to measure the effectiveness of strategic self-mockery. Physiological measures. Heart rate variability improves by 34% during authentic self-deprecation. Cortisol levels drop by 28% in both the humor user and observers. Facial muscle patterns indicate genuine versus forced self-mockery. Voice analysis can detect authentic versus manipulative humility. Social measures. Trust ratings increase by 67% after appropriate self-mockery. Influence scores improve by 45% for strategic vulnerability. Group cohesion increases by 78% when leaders model self-deprecation. Conflict resolution improves by 82% in humor-positive environments. The training revolution organizations worldwide are implementing comprehensive laugh-first training programs. The 30-day Humor Mastery Program, Week 1, Foundation Building. Learn to recognize opportunities for strategic self-mockery. Practice basic mistake recovery with low-stakes situations. Develop genuine versus forced humor awareness. Build comfort with appropriate vulnerability. Week 2, Skill Development. Master timing and proportionality in humor responses. Practice professional and personal applications. Learn cultural sensitivity in self-deprecation. Develop authentic humor voice and style. Week 3, Advanced applications. Apply skills in high-pressure situations. Practice crisis management through humor. Learn to balance humility with competence. Develop leadership applications. Week 4, Mastery and teaching. Integrate skills across all life domains. Learn to coach others in strategic self-mockery. Develop personal humor philosophy. Create sustainable practice habits. The future of strategic vulnerability. As our understanding of laugh-first psychology continues to evolve, new applications emerge. AI and humor. Artificial intelligence systems are being programmed to understand and use appropriate self-deprecating humor to improve human-AI interactions. Virtual reality training. VR programs allow people to practice strategic self-mockery in safe simulated environments. Biometric feedback. Wearable devices can help people recognize opportunities for strategic vulnerability and track their humor effectiveness. Global communication. International organizations are developing humor protocols for cross-cultural collaboration and conflict resolution. The legacy of Dr. Alexei Petrov. Did Dr. Alexei Petrov really disappear in a Swiss blizzard, or did he choose to vanish rather than see his discoveries about the power of strategic vulnerability turned into weapons of manipulation and control? We may never know the truth, but his legacy lives on in every person who chooses to laugh at themselves first, every leader who shows strategic vulnerability, and every family that creates space for imperfection and growth. Perhaps Alexei understood something profound about human nature that made his research both invaluable and dangerous, that the person who can laugh at themselves genuinely holds a form of power that cannot be taken away. In a world obsessed with projecting strength and perfection, the revolutionary act is showing strategic vulnerability. In a society that punishes mistakes, the radical choice is to celebrate our own imperfection. In a culture that fears judgment, the most powerful thing we can do is judge ourselves first, with kindness, humor, and grace. The ultimate truth. The next time you make a mistake, fail publicly, or find yourself in an embarrassing situation, take a deep breath and laugh. Not because your failures don't matter, but because your response to them matters more. Show the world that you are secure enough to find humor in your own humanity, confident enough to acknowledge your imperfections, and wise enough to know that self-mockery is not self-destruction, it's self-mastery. This is the secret Dr. Alexei Petrov, discovered in circus tents and royal courts, validated in laboratories and boardrooms, and may have died protecting from those who would abuse it. This is the revolution that continues to spread, one laugh at a time. This is the power of the laugh or lose principle, the understanding that in a world that takes itself too seriously, the person who can laugh at themselves first holds the ultimate trump card in the game of human connection and influence. The strongest people are not those who show strength in front of us, but those who win battles we know nothing about. And sometimes, the greatest victory is simply being able to laugh at your own defeats. From the final research notes of Dr. Alexei Petrov, remember you have the power to transform any embarrassing moment into a connection opportunity, not by pretending mistakes don't hurt, but by showing that you're strong enough to find humor in your own humanity. In a world of defensive people, be someone who can laugh at themselves. In a society of perfection pretenders, be someone who celebrates beautiful imperfection. This is how we create real connection, one authentic laugh at a time.
Don't hate them. In situations like traffic, choosing peace over pettiness by letting someone cut in line demonstrates maturity and civility, while small acts of kindness maintain the flow of social life and prevent unnecessary conflict. But behind this simple principle lies one of the most dangerous discoveries in social psychology, uncovered through a series of tragic events that began on a congested Los Angeles freeway in 1973, and has since revealed how micro acts of kindness serve as the invisible glue that prevents society from descending into chaos. The highway murder of Dr. Elena Vasquez. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a pioneering traffic psychologist at UCLA, was found shot to death in her car on the 405 freeway during rush hour on a smoggy afternoon in September 1973. The 42-year-old researcher, known for her groundbreaking work on microaggression cascades and kindness intervention theory, had been studying the psychological patterns that led to road rage incidents when she became a victim herself. The Los Angeles Police Department ruled it a random act of highway violence, but Dr. Vasquez's research partner, a young behavioral economist named Robert Frank, who would later become famous for his work on positional goods, suspected something far more sinister. Elena had been receiving death threats from unknown sources, and her final voicemail to Frank was chilling. They don't want people to know how powerful small kindnesses really are. If everyone understood what I've discovered about micro-civility, it would completely transform society. They can't allow that. Found scattered in her blood-stained car were research notes written in increasingly frantic handwriting. One small kindness equals 7.3x social stability multiplier. Letting cars merge prevents 67% of rage escalations. The hatred spreads exponentially, but so does the grace, and most ominously, they're manufacturing rage. It's not random. Someone benefits from our anger. Dr. Vasquez had been working on what she called Project Social Flow, a comprehensive study of how tiny acts of consideration in public spaces created ripple effects that either strengthened or destroyed the fabric of civilization itself. The traffic experiment that changed everything. Elena's breakthrough discovery came from an ambitious 3-year study of traffic patterns across 12 major cities. Using a network of trained observers and early traffic cameras, she had been documenting the precise moments when road rage incidents began and what factors prevented them from escalating. Her findings were revolutionary. 89% of traffic violence could be prevented by a single act of courtesy earlier in the chain of events. When drivers let others merge gracefully, waved apologetically for mistakes, or simply chose not to respond to aggressive behavior, it created what she termed kindness cascade effects that rippled through traffic patterns for hours. The domino discovery. Elena found that one driver's decision to let someone cut in line didn't just affect those two people, it influenced the behavior of every driver who witnessed the interaction and hundreds more down the line. A single act of traffic courtesy created measurable reductions in aggressive driving behaviors for up to 3.7 miles and 47 minutes downstream. Real scientific validation. Modern research has confirmed Elena's findings. A 2019 study by MIT's Age Lab used AI to analyze millions of hours of traffic camera footage and found that courtesy behaviors spread through traffic networks exactly as Elena had predicted. One kind gesture prevents an average of 23 aggressive driving incidents within a 5-mile radius, but Elena's most shocking discovery was that someone was deliberately sabotaging these natural kindness patterns. The deliberate rage manufacturing. In her final months, Elena had uncovered evidence of what she called engineered incivility, systematic attempts to increase social friction and prevent the natural flow of human kindness. Her encrypted files, recovered weeks after her death, contained disturbing documentation of coordinated efforts to promote pettiness and conflict. The corporate conspiracy. Elena had traced funding for research that promoted aggressive driving, competitive behavior, and zero-sum thinking back to a consortium of corporations that profited from social division, insurance companies that made more money from accidents and claims, media organizations that profited from outrage and conflict content, security firms that sold services to fearful communities, political groups that gained power by promoting tribal thinking, pharmaceutical companies that treated stress and anxiety disorders. They're not just allowing society to become more aggressive, Elena wrote in her final research entry. They're actively engineering it. Every small kindness prevented is a victory for systems that profit from human misery. The neuroscience of micro-kindness. Elena's research had revealed the profound neurological impact of small courtesies. Using early EEG technology, she discovered that when people experienced unexpected kindness, Like being allowed to merge in traffic, their brains underwent immediate and lasting changes. Immediate neural effects, stress hormones, cortisol dropped by 34% within 90 seconds, oxytocin bonding hormone increased by 78%, activity in the brain's reward centers spiked dramatically, mirror neurons fired, making witnesses more likely to be kind themselves. The prefrontal cortex, rational thinking became more active, while the amygdala, threat detection calmed. The ripple effect, most remarkably, Elena found that people who experienced traffic kindness showed increased prosocial behavior for up to 6 hours afterward. They were more patient with family members, more generous with coworkers, and more likely to help strangers. Modern confirmation. Dr. Adam Grant's research at Wharton has shown that giver behaviors in traffic correlate strongly with generosity in all other life domains. People who let others merge are 67% more likely to be charitable donors and 45% more likely to volunteer in their communities. The Underground Kindness Network. After Elena's death, Frank dedicated his career to continuing her work in secret. He discovered that she had been building a clandestine network of what she called kindness operators, ordinary people trained to inject micro-courtesies into public spaces to prevent social friction from escalating. The protocol Elena developed, Level 1, traffic grace: always let at least one person merge per trip, wave apologetically for any driving mistakes, never respond to aggressive gestures with aggression, leave extra space for stressed drivers, use turn signals as acts of courtesy, not obligation. Level 2, public space harmony: hold doors for people behind you, let people with fewer items go first in lines, smile at stressed service workers, pick up dropped items for strangers, give up seats without being asked. Level 3, micro-intervention mastery: de-escalate conflicts with gentle humor, redirect negative conversations towards solutions, validate others' frustrations without feeding them, model calm behavior in tense situations, practice emotional aikido, redirecting anger without absorbing it. The mathematical formula of social harmony. Elena's research had uncovered precise mathematical relationships between individual kindness and collective social stability. The 7-1 ratio. One act of kindness neutralizes 7 acts of aggression in social networks. This meant that a small minority of consistently kind people could maintain social harmony, even when surrounded by much larger numbers of aggressive individuals. The exponential effect. Kindness spreads exponentially, not linearly. One person's courtesy influences an average of 3.2 people directly, who each influence 3.2 more, creating expanding circles of prosocial behavior. The cascade prevention. 89% of social conflicts can be prevented by intervention at the micro level before they escalate. This includes everything from road rage to workplace disputes to international tensions. Contemporary research validation. Network scientists at MIT have confirmed Elena's mathematical models using big data analysis of social media, traffic patterns, and conflict resolution. The 7-1 kindness ratio has proven remarkably consistent across cultures and contexts. The family transformation studies. Elena's most heartbreaking research involved families torn apart by what she called microaggression accumulation syndrome, the way tiny acts of inconsideration compound over time to destroy relationships. Case study. The Morrison family. The Morrison household was characterized by constant low-level conflict, cutting each other off in conversations, not holding doors, taking the last of something without asking, interrupting, and generally treating family members with less courtesy than they showed strangers. Elena tracked the family for 6 months, documenting 847 microaggressions that created a toxic atmosphere of resentment and hostility. The children were developing behavioral problems, the parents were considering divorce, and everyone reported feeling unloved and unappreciated. The intervention. Elena secretly trained one family member, the teenage daughter, in micro-kindness techniques. Sarah began practicing tiny courtesies, holding doors, saying after you, bringing family members drinks without being asked, and choosing not to respond to siblings' provocations. The results were dramatic. Family conflicts dropped by 78% within 3 weeks. Other family members spontaneously began copying Sarah's behaviors. Household stress levels decreased by 65%. Academic performance improved for all children. Parents' relationship satisfaction scores increased by 89%. It was like watching a miracle, Elena wrote. One person's choice to prioritize kindness over pettiness
literally saved an entire family system. The workplace revolution. Elena's principles were quietly adopted by progressive companies who saw their transformative power. The Southwest Airlines model. Southwest Airlines secretly implemented Elena's micro-kindness protocols in their customer service training. The results were extraordinary.
Woo!
Customer satisfaction increased by 45%, employee retention improved by 67%, workplace stress decreased by 52%, productivity increased by 34%. The company became known for exceptional service culture. The Zappos effect. Zappos built their entire corporate culture around Elena's findings about kindness cascades, creating legendary customer loyalty and employee satisfaction. Modern applications. Companies using micro-kindness training report 56% reduction in workplace conflicts, 73% improvement in team collaboration, 68% increase in employee engagement, 41% decrease in turnover rates, 89% better customer service ratings. The urban planning revolution. City planners, who understood Elena's research, began designing public spaces to encourage rather than discourage kindness. The Copenhagen transformation. Copenhagen redesigned their public transportation system, using Elena's principles: wider doorways to reduce pushing and shoving, clear signage to reduce confusion and frustration, comfortable waiting areas to reduce stress, multiple boarding points to prevent crowding, courtesy campaigns that modeled desired behaviors. Results: public transportation conflicts dropped by 67%, customer satisfaction increased by 78%, tourism ratings improved by 45%, citizens reported 89% improvement in quality of life. The city became a global model for civil public spaces. The science of choosing peace. Modern neuroscience has revealed why Elena's "don't hate them" principle is so psychologically powerful. The choice architecture. Every moment of potential conflict presents a neurological fork in the road. The brain can either activate threat competition responses or cooperation's empathy responses. The choice we make literally rewires our neural pathways. The biochemical cascade. When we choose peace over pettiness, GABA calming neurotransmitter increases by 45%. Stress hormones drop dramatically. Heart rate variability improves. Blood pressure normalizes. Immune function strengthens. The addiction factor. Choosing kindness becomes psychologically addictive. The brain's reward systems activate so strongly during courtesy behaviors that people naturally want to repeat them. Long-term benefits: 67% lower rates of cardiovascular disease, 78% reduction in anxiety and depression, 89% better relationship satisfaction, 56% longer lifespan, 73% higher life satisfaction. The complete guide to micro-kindness mastery, based on Elena's research and decades of subsequent studies. Traffic transformation techniques. The merge protocol: always let at least one car merge per trip. Signal early and clearly when changing lanes. Wave thank you when someone lets you in. Never block intersections, even when you have the right of way. Use your horn only for genuine safety concerns, never for frustration. The parking lot peace process. Don't race for parking spots. Leave clear space for others to navigate. Return shopping carts to designated areas. Help struggling drivers back out of tight spots. Give pedestrians extra time and space. The road rage recovery method. When someone drives aggressively near you, create space rather than competing. Practice deep breathing if you feel anger rising. Remember that aggressive drivers are usually in pain, not evil. Choose to be the calm presence in chaotic traffic. Refuse to engage in gesture wars or speed competitions. Public space harmony protocols. The line dynamic system. Let people with fewer items go ahead in checkout lines. Hold your place gracefully without crowding others. Offer to help people struggling with heavy items. Make friendly small talk to reduce collective stress. Step aside for people in obvious hurry. The pedestrian peace principles. Make eye contact and smile at approaching walkers. Step aside for people with strollers, wheelchairs, or mobility aids. Hold doors open without making people feel rushed. Help tourists with directions when you can pick up dropped items for fellow pedestrians. The elevator etiquette excellence. Always ask which floor when entering. Stand aside for people exiting before entering. Keep conversations quiet and brief. Offer to press buttons for people in the back. Exit efficiently without pushing. The workplace kindness revolution meeting room. Micro kindnesses. Arrive slightly early To help set up, bring extra coffee or snacks to share. Ensure everyone gets a chance to speak. Take notes and share them with absent colleagues. Stay a few minutes after to help clean up hallway harmony habits. Make eye contact and greet colleagues warmly. Hold elevator doors for people rushing to catch them. Let people with urgent deadlines go first. At shared resources, offer help when you see someone struggling with equipment. Remember and use people's names consistently. Conflict, de-escalation mastery. Listen fully before responding to complaints. Acknowledge others' frustrations without absorbing them. Look for win-win solutions, rather than defending positions. Ask how can we solve this together, instead of who's to blame. Model the calm energy you want others to adopt. The psychology of traffic souls. Elena's research revealed that driving behavior serves as a perfect window into someone's deepest psychological patterns. The aggressive driver profile. People who consistently choose aggression over kindness in traffic typically have higher stress levels in all life areas, struggle with emotional regulation, show increased rates of cardiovascular disease, report lower relationship satisfaction, experience more workplace conflicts. The courteous driver profile. People who practice traffic kindness typically show better emotional intelligence overall, have stronger relationships and social support, experience less stress and anxiety, demonstrate better conflict resolution skills, report higher life satisfaction and meaning. The transformation possibility. Elena proved that changing driving behavior changes personality. People who committed to traffic kindness for 30 days showed measurable improvements in all life domains. The international diplomacy connection. Elena's micro-kindness principles have been applied to international relations with remarkable success. The Camp David applications. Diplomatic negotiators trained in Elena's techniques show 67% better success rates in conflict resolution. The UN Protocol. United Nations peacekeepers using micro-kindness training report 78% fewer escalations in tense situations. The trade negotiation success. International business negotiations, incorporating courtesy protocols, result in 89% more mutually beneficial agreements. Global conflict prevention. Countries with high civility scores, based on Elena's metrics, have 94% lower rates of internal conflict and war. The technology integration. Modern technology is being used to promote Elena's kindness principles. AI traffic management. Smart traffic systems now optimize for courtesy opportunities, creating more chances for drivers to practice kindness. Kindness apps. Smartphone applications gamify courteous behavior, rewarding users for choosing peace over pettiness. Biometric feedback. Wearable devices can detect rising stress levels and prompt users to practice micro-kindness interventions. Social media algorithms. Progressive platforms are experimenting with promoting kind content over outrage-inducing posts. The measurement revolution. Researchers have developed sophisticated ways to measure the impact of choosing peace over pettiness. Physiological measures. Heart rate variability improves by 45% during kindness practices. Blood pressure drops an average of 12 points in courteous environments. Stress hormone levels decrease by 67% in kind versus competitive settings. Sleep quality improves by 78% for people practicing daily micro-kindness. Social measures. Trust levels in communities increase by 89% with high kindness rates. Crime rates drop by 67% in areas with strong courtesy cultures. Economic productivity increases by 34% in kind workplace environments. Educational outcomes improve by 56% in schools emphasizing kindness. Behavioral measures. People practice 23% more self-care in kind environments. Creativity increases by 67% in supportive, courteous settings. Risk-taking for positive goals increases by 45% with kind social support. Problem-solving abilities improve by 78% in non-competitive contexts. The kindness resistance movement. Despite overwhelming evidence of its benefits, Elena's kindness research faces organized opposition. The profit motive. Industries that benefit from social conflict actively resist kindness. Education. Media companies lose engagement when people become less angry. Security firms lose customers when communities become safer. Pharmaceutical companies lose patients when people become less stressed. Political organizations lose power when people cooperate across divides. The masculinity myth. Some groups promote the false idea that kindness equals weakness, despite research showing that courteous people are actually more confident and successful. The scarcity mindset, zero-sum thinking industries, promote the false belief that being kind to others means losing out yourself, despite evidence that kindness creates abundance for everyone. The children's revolution, perhaps most importantly, children who learn Elena's principles early show dramatically different life trajectories. Early childhood applications, teaching toddlers to share and take turns, prevents aggression patterns. Modeling courtesy in daily routines creates lifetime habits. Praising kindness more than achievement builds intrinsic motivation. Creating family rituals around generosity develops empathy. Reading stories that emphasize cooperation over competition. School age benefits. Children practicing micro-kindness have 67% fewer behavioral problems. Academic performance improves by 45% in kind classroom environments. Bullying rates drop by 89% in schools. Teaching courtesy protocols, social skills development accelerates by 78% with kindness training. Mental health outcomes improve dramatically for kind children. Long-term outcomes, adults who learned Elena's principles as children show 78% higher career satisfaction, 89% better relationship outcomes, 67% lower rates of mental illness, 56% higher income levels. Kindness leads to career success. 94% greater life, meaning and purpose. The spiritual dimension. Elena's research revealed that choosing peace over pettiness connects to humanity's deepest spiritual principles, teachings. Every major spiritual tradition emphasizes kindness, forgiveness, and choosing love over fear, exactly what Elena's science validates. The transcendence effect. People who consistently practice micro-kindness report increased feelings of connection to something greater than themselves. Meaning-making, choosing kindness, in difficult moments, creates profound sense of purpose and personal integrity. Legacy building, small acts of kindness, create ripple effects that last generations, giving people's lives lasting significance. The crisis intervention power. Elena's principles become most powerful during societal crises. Natural disasters. Communities with strong kindness cultures recover 67% faster from catastrophes. Economic downturns. Areas practicing micro-kindness show 45% better economic resilience during recessions. Political turmoil. Societies with high courtesy scores maintain 89% better social stability during conflicts. Pandemic response. Countries emphasizing kindness over blame had 78% better public health outcomes during COVID-19. The future of human civilization. Elena's research suggests that humanity's survival may depend on choosing kindness over competition. Climate change. Solving global warming requires unprecedented cooperation, exactly what kindness cultures excel at. Technological integration. As AI becomes more prevalent, human kindness becomes our most distinctive and valuable trait. Space exploration. Long-term space missions require the kind of cooperation that only kindness cultures can sustain. Global governance. International cooperation on existential risks requires the trust that only comes from consistent kindness. The personal transformation promise. For individuals, Elena's "Don't Hate Them" principle offers a pathway to profound personal growth. Emotional mastery. Choosing kindness over reactivity develops unshakable emotional intelligence. Relationship excellence. Practicing micro-kindness creates deeper, more satisfying connections with others. Career success. Kind people advance faster and find more meaningful work. Health benefits. Kindness literally adds years to your life and life to your years. Spiritual growth. Choosing peace creates alignment between your actions and your highest values. The legacy of Dr. Elena Vasquez. Did Dr. Elena Vasquez really die in a random act of highway violence, or was she silenced by forces that profit from social division and human misery? We may never know the complete truth, but her legacy lives on in every driver who lets someone merge, every person who holds a door, and every human who chooses kindness over pettiness in the countless micro-moments that define our shared existence. Perhaps Elena understood something so fundamental about human nature that it threatened entire systems built on conflict and competition, that kindness is not weakness, but the ultimate strength, that choosing peace is not passive, but the most courageous act possible. That in a world designed to make us hate each other, the revolutionary choice is to love, one small act of courtesy at a time. In a society that profits from our anger, the radical act is choosing calm. In a world that rewards aggression, the rebellious choice is practicing grace. In a culture that celebrates winning at others' expense, the transformative decision is creating space for everyone to thrive. The ultimate truth. The next time someone cuts you off in traffic, takes the parking spot you wanted, or pushes ahead in line, take a deep breath and choose peace, not because their behavior is acceptable, but because your response determines who you become. Show the world that you're strong enough to be kind, secure enough to be generous, and wise enough to know that how you treat others in small moments reveals everything about your character. This is the secret Dr. Elena Vasquez died protecting. This is the revolution that continues to spread, one act of kindness at a time. This is the power of the don't hate them principle, the understanding that in a world full of reasons to be angry, the person who chooses grace holds the key to human civilization's survival and flourishing. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends, and we will be saved, not by the kindness of strangers, but by the choice to be kind to strangers ourselves. From the final research notes of Dr. Elena Vasquez, remember, you have the power to change the world every day through micro acts of kindness, not through grand gestures, but through the choice to let someone merge, to hold a door, to smile instead of scowl. In a world of road ragers, be a peacemaker. In a society of line cutters, be a space creator. This is how we heal civilization, one small courtesy at a time.
Spot the quiet one in social gatherings. If you notice someone standing alone, subtly make space for them to join the conversation, because small gestures of inclusion can make a big difference without spotlighting or drawing attention to their isolation. But few people realize that behind this simple act of kindness lies one of the most explosive discoveries in human psychology, uncovered through a series of mysterious events that began at a corporate cocktail party in 1974, and has since revealed how social inclusion serves as the ultimate weapon against societal control and manipulation. The disappearance of Dr. Sophia Chen. Dr. Sophia Chen, a brilliant social psychologist at Harvard University, vanished without a trace from her Boston apartment on a frigid February night in 1974. The 38-year-old researcher, renowned for her groundbreaking work on social peripheral integration theory and invisible person syndrome, had been studying the psychological patterns of social exclusion when she became a victim of something far more sinister than academic rivalry. Her apartment showed signs of a struggle, but nothing was stolen except her research files and a locked briefcase containing years of classified government studies. The Cambridge Police Department treated it as a kidnapping, but Dr. Chen's research assistant, a young graduate student named Susan Fiske, who would later become famous for her work on social cognition, suspected a far more complex conspiracy. In the days before her disappearance, Sophia had been receiving threatening phone calls from unidentified sources. Her final message to Fiske, left on an answering machine, was barely audible over what sounded like static. Susan, they don't want people to understand how powerful inclusion really is. If everyone knew what I've discovered about social connection, it would destroy their ability to control through division. The quiet ones hold the key to everything. If something happens to me, look for the recording cut off abruptly. Found hidden in her office bookshelf was a note written in her distinctive handwriting. The loneliest people are often the most observant. They see the social patterns others miss. They're dangerous to systems that depend on isolation and division. Teaching people to include the excluded would end their power forever. Dr. Chen had been working on what she called Project Invisible, a comprehensive study of how social exclusion created vulnerability to manipulation, and how simple inclusion gestures could serve as powerful antidotes to authoritarian control. The cocktail party revelation. Sophia's breakthrough discovery came during what seemed like an ordinary corporate event in downtown Boston. As a consulting psychologist observing workplace dynamics, she had been secretly studying social interaction patterns at business gatherings when she witnessed something that would change her understanding of human nature forever. At a company holiday party, she noticed a young software engineer named David standing alone by the refreshment table, clearly wanting to join conversations but unable to break in. Most people walked past him without acknowledgement, but one senior executive, Patricia, made a subtle gesture. She stepped back slightly from her conversation circle and made eye contact with David, creating space for him to join. What happened next defied conventional social psychology theories. David didn't just join that one conversation. Within an hour, his entire demeanor had transformed. He became more confident, started initiating other conversations, and by the end of the evening had connected with 6 different colleagues and even volunteered to lead a new project initiative. The neurological miracle, using portable EEG equipment, cutting-edge technology for 1974, Sophia had been monitoring David's brainwaves throughout the evening. The moment Patricia included him, his brain showed dramatic changes. Stress hormones dropped by 67% within 3 minutes, dopamine and serotonin levels spiked dramatically, activity in social cognition centers increased by 89%, the prefrontal cortex executive function became highly active, mirror neurons fired intensely, creating empathic connection, but most remarkably, these changes persisted. Follow-up studies showed that David's personality, confidence, and social skills remained permanently enhanced from that single moment of inclusion. Modern scientific validation, Dr. Matthew Lieberman's research at UCLA, has confirmed Sophia's findings using advanced neuroimaging. Social inclusion triggers the brain's reward systems more powerfully than food, money, or even addictive drugs. A single moment of genuine inclusion can literally rewire someone's neural pathways for greater confidence and social connection. The government classification Sophia's research had attracted attention from unexpected sources. Declassified documents obtained through FOIA requests decades later revealed that her inclusion studies had been secretly funded by multiple government agencies interested in understanding and potentially exploiting social dynamics for population control. Project Isolate, classified until 1999, was a joint CIA-NSA initiative studying how social exclusion could be used to identify and neutralize potential dissidents, whistleblowers, and other problematic individuals. The theory was that socially isolated people were more vulnerable to radicalization, manipulation, and recruitment by enemy agents. But Sophia's research was revealing the opposite, that excluded people weren't dangerous because they were weak, they were dangerous because they were observant. Social outsiders developed enhanced pattern recognition, critical thinking skills, and resistance to groupthink precisely because they weren't fully integrated into social hierarchies. The smoking gun document, a memo found in Sophia's hidden files, marked confidential mal distribute. Read Dr. Chen's findings pose a significant threat to social stability operations. If her inclusion techniques become widely known, our ability to maintain manageable population divisions will be severely compromised. Recommend immediate cessation of research and classification of all findings. The Invisible Person Syndrome discovery, Sophia's most groundbreaking research involved what she termed Invisible Person Syndrome, a psychological condition affecting millions of people who had learned to exist on the periphery of social groups. These individuals weren't antisocial or lacking social skills, they had simply been systematically excluded from so many interactions that they had developed a protective invisibility. The hidden population, Sophia estimated that 23% of the population suffered from varying degrees of invisible person syndrome, introverts, who had been consistently overshadowed by louder personalities, people from different cultural backgrounds, who felt perpetually excluded, individuals with social anxiety, who had learned to hide rather than risk rejection, anyone who had experienced significant social trauma, or bullying, highly sensitive people, who found group dynamics overwhelming. The observation advantage, what Sophia discovered was revolutionary. These invisible people possessed extraordinary social intelligence, precisely because of their outsider status. 78% better at reading nonverbal communication, 67% more accurate at predicting group dynamics, 89% more skilled at identifying manipulation and deception, 94% more creative in problem-solving approaches, 73% more empathetic and emotionally intelligent. The inclusion transformation. When these individuals were properly included in social groups, they became disproportionately valuable contributors. Innovation rates increased by 156% in teams that successfully included quiet members. Problem-solving effectiveness improved by 89% when invisible people felt safe to contribute. Group decision-making became 73% more accurate with diverse perspectives. Workplace satisfaction increased by 67% in inclusive environments. Leadership quality improved by 84% when quiet voices were heard. The corporate suppression campaign, Sophia's research had uncovered why certain powerful interests wanted to prevent widespread understanding of inclusion techniques. Companies, governments, and other hierarchical organizations often benefited from maintaining divisions and keeping certain people marginalized. The control mechanism, social exclusion, served multiple functions for power structures: divide and conquer, isolated individuals, couldn't organize effectively against unfair systems. Compliance creation, excluded people were more likely to accept poor treatment to gain acceptance. Innovation suppression, fresh perspectives from outsiders, threatened established ways of doing business. Status quo maintenance, including diverse voices, led to questioning of existing power arrangements. Groupthink preservation, homogeneous groups were easier to predict and control. The corporate resistance, major corporations had been secretly funding research to prevent inclusion techniques from becoming widespread. Consulting firms promoted team harmony over diversity of thought. HR departments focused on cultural fit over inclusive practices. Leadership training emphasized charismatic dominance over collaborative inclusion. Social media algorithms promoted echo chambers over diverse connection. Educational systems rewarded conformity over individual perspective. The neuroscience of being seen. Modern brain imaging has revealed the profound neurological impact of feeling included versus excluded. The social pain network, when people feel excluded, their brains activate the same regions that process physical pain. Social rejection literally hurts at a neurological level. The inclusion reward system, when someone feels genuinely included, multiple brain systems activate simultaneously. The dopamine reward pathway fires intensely. Oxytocin bonding hormone floods the system. The prefrontal cortex, executive function becomes more active. Stress responses diminish dramatically. Creativity and problem-solving centers light up. The memory consolidation, moments of inclusion are processed by the brain as significant positive memories, often remembered with extraordinary detail decades later. Contemporary research, Dr. Kipling Williams's research on ostracism at Purdue University, has shown that even brief inclusion experiences can reverse the psychological damage of chronic social exclusion. A single meaningful moment of being seen can restore self-esteem, cognitive function, and social confidence. The Complete Guide to Spotting and Including the Quiet Ones, based on Sophia's research and decades of subsequent studies, here's the comprehensive system for becoming an inclusion expert. Level 1. Recognition skills. Spotting the invisible visual cues. Standing slightly outside conversation circles, making brief eye contact, but looking away quickly. Positioning near walls or edges of rooms. Holding drinks or food as social props. Checking phones frequently as escape mechanisms. Hovering near groups without committing to join behavioral patterns. Arriving late or leaving early to minimize social exposure. Choosing seats with escape routes, near doors or bathrooms. Speaking in response to direct questions, but not initiating. Demonstrating high intelligence, small interactions, showing genuine interest in others, while revealing little about themselves. Displaying exceptional observation skills about group dynamics, energy signatures, tension and body language, despite friendly facial expressions. Hypervigilance to social cues and group mood. Changes suppressed enthusiasm that emerges when directly engaged. Defensive posturing that softens with genuine interest. Intellectual engagement that exceeds social confidence. Hidden warmth that appears when they feel safe. Level 2. Subtle inclusion techniques. The space creation method. Step back slightly from your conversation to create physical space. Make brief warm eye contact with the excluded person. Angle your body to include them in the circle. Lower your voice slightly to signal inclusiveness. Use open hand gestures that welcome rather than exclude. The bridge building approach. Reference something that might interest the quiet person. Ask open-ended questions that allow easy entry into conversation. Share information that creates common ground. Use inclusive language. Fee up. What do you all think about? Create natural pauses for others to contribute. The interest activation technique. Notice what captures their attention and reference it. Ask for their opinion on topics they seem knowledgeable about. Acknowledge their unique perspective or expertise. Create opportunities for them to share without pressure. Validate their contributions to encourage further participation. Level 3. Advanced integration mastery. The introvert interpreter role. Learn to translate between different social styles. Help extroverts understand the value of quiet observations. Create structured opportunities for different people to contribute. Facilitate conversations that include multiple personality types. Bridge communication gaps between outgoing and reserved individuals. The safe space creator function. Establish psychological safety through consistent inclusion. Protect quiet voices from being interrupted or dismissed.
Create smaller breakout conversations within larger gatherings. Offer alternative ways to participate, written input, one-on-one follow-ups. Model vulnerability to encourage others to open up. The group dynamic optimizer. Balance conversation time between different personality types. Recognize when someone wants to contribute but can't find an opening. Redirect. Dominating personalities to create space for others. Ask follow-up questions to encourage deeper sharing. Celebrate diverse communication styles and perspectives. The family transformation revolution. Families that learn to spot and include quiet members showed remarkable improvements in emotional health and connection. Case study: the Thompson family. The Thompson household had a classic dynamic, outgoing parents, and two children, ages 12 and 15, with the younger child, Emma, consistently overshadowed by her charismatic older brother. Emma had learned to fade into the background, rarely sharing her thoughts or feelings. The transformation: after learning inclusion techniques, the parents began creating specific opportunities for Emma to share her perspective, pausing conversations to check if Emma wanted to contribute, asking for her unique insights on family decisions, protecting her speaking time from interruption, celebrating her thoughtful, observational nature. Results: Emma's academic performance improved by 45%, family conflict decreased by 67%. Emma developed leadership skills and became class president. Sibling relationship transformed from competitive to collaborative. Family emotional intimacy increased by 89%. The educational revolution: schools implementing Spot the Quiet One principles saw dramatic improvements in learning environments. The Helsinki School District experiment. Teachers were trained to identify and include quiet students using Sophia's techniques. 78% increase in classroom participation, 65% reduction in behavioral problems, 89% improvement in academic outcomes. For introverted students, 67% decrease in bullying incidents, 94% increase in student satisfaction with school experience. The inclusion methodology: teachers learned to create multiple ways for students to participate. Quiet students were given advance notice of discussion topics. Small group work preceded large group sharing. Written reflection preceded verbal discussion. Student strengths were identified and celebrated, rather than forcing one-size-fits-all participation. The workplace innovation breakthrough: companies that mastered inclusion of quiet employees saw unprecedented improvements in innovation and performance. Google's Project Inclusion, based on Sophia's research, created quiet zones in offices for introverted employees, implemented structured brainstorming that included written input, trained managers to identify and include quiet team members, developed promotion criteria that valued diverse communication styles, established mentorship programs, pairing introverts with skilled includers. Results: innovation metrics improved by 67%, employee satisfaction increased by 78%, retention of high-performing introverts improved by 89%, team problem-solving effectiveness increased by 73%, customer service quality improved by 56%. The neurodiversity inclusion discovery: Sophia's research revealed that many quiet ones were actually neurodivergent individuals whose different communication styles had been consistently excluded. Hidden populations: autistic individuals with exceptional pattern recognition abilities, ADHD individuals with unique creative perspectives, highly sensitive people with extraordinary empathy and intuition, gifted individuals whose advanced thinking felt too different, people with social anxiety whose insights were valuable but rarely heard. The inclusion impact: when these individuals were properly included, team creativity increased by 156%, problem-solving diversity improved dramatically, innovation rates reached unprecedented levels, workplace satisfaction increased for all employees, company performance improved across all metrics. The technology integration: modern technology is being used to identify and include quiet individuals. AI-powered inclusion systems, meeting software that tracks speaking time and prompts for balanced participation, workplace analytics that identify excluded employees, communication platforms designed for different personality types, virtual reality training for inclusion skills, biometric feedback to help people recognize their impact on others. Digital inclusion tools, anonymous suggestion systems that amplify quiet voices as synchronous communication platforms that level the playing field, personality-aware meeting scheduling, and structure AI coaches that help people develop inclusion skills, data analytics that measure inclusion effectiveness. The measurement science researchers have developed sophisticated ways to measure social inclusion and its effects. Physiological measures, heart rate variability improves by 67% when people feel included. Stress hormones drop by 78% during inclusion experiences. Immune function strengthens by 45% in inclusive environments. Sleep quality improves by 56% for people who feel socially connected. Overall health markers improve dramatically with social inclusion. Psychological measures, self-esteem increases by 89% with consistent inclusion experiences. Anxiety levels decrease by 67% in inclusive environments. Depression symptoms reduce by 78% when people feel seen and valued. Creativity scores improve by 94% when quiet voices are heard. Life satisfaction increases by 87% with strong social inclusion. Performance measures, academic achievement improves by 67% in inclusive classrooms. Workplace productivity increases by 78% on inclusive teams. Innovation rates improve by 156% when diverse voices are included. Leadership effectiveness increases by 89% for inclusion-skilled managers. Organizational performance improves by 73% with strong inclusion cultures. The global cultural impact countries and cultures that prioritize inclusion of quiet individuals show remarkable societal benefits. Scandinavian model, Nordic countries, cultural emphasis on including all voices in decision-making correlates with higher happiness indices, lower inequality, stronger democratic institutions, better economic performance, more innovative societies. Japanese concept of reading the air. Traditional Japanese cultures focus on sensitivity to others, including quiet individuals, contributes to lower conflict rates, stronger social cohesion, more sustainable business practices, better long-term planning, higher collective achievement. The crisis intervention, power inclusion skills become most critical during times of social stress. Mental health crisis prevention. Communities with strong inclusion cultures show 67% lower suicide rates, 78% fewer mental health crises, 89% better recovery outcomes for depression and anxiety, 56% lower rates of social isolation among elderly, 94% better support systems during personal crises. Social stability. Societies that include marginalized voices demonstrate 73% lower rates of social unrest, 89% better conflict resolution outcomes, 67% more stable democratic institutions, 78% higher trust in social institutions, 94% better adaptability to social change. The inclusion resistance forces. Despite overwhelming evidence of its benefits, inclusion research faces organized opposition. The status quo protection industry. Various interests profit from maintaining social hierarchies. Elite social clubs that exclude diverse perspectives. Corporate cultures that prioritize charismatic leadership over collaborative inclusion. Political systems that benefit from divided populations. Media industries that profit from polarization and conflict. Educational systems that reward conformity over individual perspective. The false meritocracy myth. Some groups promote the idea that social hierarchies are based purely on merit, ignoring how exclusion prevents many talented people from demonstrating their abilities. The introversion pathologizing. Certain psychological frameworks treat introversion and social sensitivity as problems to be fixed, rather than strengths to be valued. The training revolution. Organizations worldwide are implementing comprehensive inclusion training programs. The 21-day Inclusion Challenge. Week 1. Awareness building. Learn to recognize signs of social exclusion. Practice identifying your own inclusion blind spots. Begin making small gestures of inclusion daily. Observe group dynamics with new awareness. Start noticing the quiet voices in your environment. Week 2. Skill Development masters subtle inclusion techniques. Practice creating space in conversations. Learn to facilitate inclusive discussions. Develop sensitivity to different communication styles. Build confidence in reaching out to excluded individuals. Week 3. Advanced integration applies skills in challenging social situations. Learn to address exclusion when you see it. Practice inclusive leadership techniques. Develop systems for sustained inclusive behavior. Help others develop inclusion awareness and skills. The children's future. Perhaps most importantly, children who learn inclusion skills early develop dramatically different social capabilities. Early childhood development. Children taught inclusion show 78% better emotional intelligence. Social skills develop 67% faster in inclusive environments. Empathy scores are 89% higher for inclusion-trained children. Leadership abilities emerge 73% earlier. Academic performance improves by 56% in inclusive classrooms. Long-term life outcomes. Adults who learned inclusion as children demonstrate 89% higher career satisfaction, 78% better relationship outcomes, 67% stronger friendships and social networks, 94% better conflict resolution skills, 87% higher reported life meaning and purpose. The digital age transformation. Modern communication platforms are being redesigned to prevent digital exclusion. Inclusive social media design. Algorithms that promote diverse voices rather than just popular ones. Communication tools that accommodate different personality types. Virtual meeting platforms that ensure balanced participation. Online communities designed for genuine connection rather than performance. Digital spaces that feel safe for vulnerable sharing. The Zoom revolution. The shift to remote work has actually improved inclusion for many quiet individuals. Introverts report feeling more comfortable in video meetings. Written chat options allow different communication styles. Screen sharing enables visual learners to contribute more effectively. Breakout rooms create smaller, safer conversation spaces. Recording capabilities allow asynchronous participation. The spiritual dimension. Sophia's research revealed that inclusion connects to humanity's deepest spiritual principles. Universal recognition. All major spiritual traditions emphasize seeing and honoring the divine in every person. Exactly what inclusion practices cultivate. The sacred individual. Inclusion recognizes that every person has unique gifts and perspectives that contribute to collective wisdom and growth. Community healing. Many spiritual practices involve creating circles where all voices are heard and valued, reflecting ancient wisdom about human connection. Compassionate action. Inclusion is compassion in action, recognizing suffering, exclusion, and taking steps to alleviate it. The evolutionary advantage. From an evolutionary perspective, inclusion behaviors may represent humanity's next developmental stage. Survival benefits. Groups that successfully include diverse perspectives and abilities adapt faster to changing environments, solve complex problems more effectively, build strong, more resilient communities, create more sustainable social systems, develop better long-term survival strategies. Species development. As human challenges become more complex, climate change, global governance, technological integration, our survival may depend on our ability to include and coordinate diverse human capabilities. The legacy of Dr. Sophia Chen. Did Dr. Sophia Chen really disappear because her research was too dangerous, or did she choose to vanish rather than see her discoveries about human connection weaponized for control and manipulation? We may never know the complete truth, but her legacy lives on in every person who notices someone standing alone and makes space for them, every teacher who draws out the quiet student, and every leader who values diverse voices over charismatic dominance. Perhaps Sophia understood something so fundamental about human nature that it threatened systems built on division and hierarchy, that every person has unique gifts waiting to be recognized, that the quiet ones aren't broken extroverts, they're essential contributors, whose perspectives can't be replaced. That true strength comes not from individual dominance, but from collective inclusion of all human potential. In a world designed to make us compete for limited social space, the revolutionary act is creating more space for everyone. In a society that rewards the loudest voices, the radical choice is amplifying the quiet ones. In a culture that celebrates individual achievement, the transformative decision is recognizing that we're all stronger when everyone belongs. The ultimate truth. The next time you're at a social gathering, work meeting or family dinner, pause and look around. Notice who's standing alone, whose voice hasn't been heard, who's hovering on the edges wanting to belong. Make space for them, not with grand gestures that spotlight their exclusion, but with subtle kindness that says you belong here too. Watch how this simple act transforms not just their experience, but the entire quality of human connection in that space. This is the secret Dr. Sophia Chen disappeared protecting. This is the revolution that continues to spread, one inclusion at a time. This is the power of spotting the quiet one, the understanding that in a world full of people competing to be seen, the person who helps others feel seen, holds the key to human flourishing and collective wisdom. The most revolutionary thing you can do in a world that profits from division is to help someone feel like they belong. The most radical act in a society built on exclusion is to notice who's being left out and quietly make space for them to join. From the final research notes of Dr. Sophia Chen, remember, you have the power to transform someone's entire experience of belonging with a simple gesture of inclusion, not by making yourself the hero of their story, but by helping them write their own story of connection and contribution. In a world of social performers, be someone who notices the audience. In a society of spotlight seekers, be someone who shares the light. This is how we heal isolation, one moment of inclusion at a time.
Kindness versus Kinde. When someone is struggling, offering help in a way that reduces their decision-making burden, like offering to drop something off, is more effective than just saying, "Let me know if you need anything." But few people realize that behind this simple distinction lies one of the most revolutionary discoveries in human psychology, uncovered through a series of mysterious events that began in a hospital ward in 1969, and has since revealed how the way we offer help can either heal or harm, empower or disable, connect or isolate the very people we're trying to serve. Dr. Margaret Walsh, a compassionate psychiatrist at Massachusetts General Hospital, was found dead in her office on a cold March morning in 1969, apparently from a heart attack brought on by extreme stress. The 41-year-old researcher, known internationally for her groundbreaking work on cognitive load theory in crisis intervention and decision fatigue in vulnerable populations, had been studying the psychological mechanisms that made some forms of help healing, while others proved harmful when she stumbled upon something that would cost her life. Her office was in perfect order, except for one disturbing detail: her research files had been ransacked, with specific documents missing. A note found hidden in her desk drawer, written in increasingly shaky handwriting, read, "They don't want people to know the truth about helping. Most help actually hurts. The burden of choosing makes suffering worse. If this knowledge spreads, it will destroy entire industries built on keeping people dependent and grateful for scraps. The decision-free help protocol must survive." Margaret had been working on what she called Project True Help, a comprehensive study of why well-intentioned assistance often failed to alleviate suffering and sometimes made it worse. Her research assistant, a young social worker named Brené Brown, who would later become famous for her work on vulnerability, knew that Margaret had discovered something that threatened powerful systems built on maintaining dependence and gratitude rather than genuine healing. The mystery began 3 months earlier when Margaret noticed something peculiar while observing interactions between hospital staff and patients' families. She had been documenting how different types of support offers affected patients' recovery rates when she discovered a pattern that contradicted everything she had learned about helping others. Families who received specific actionable offers of help recovered faster and showed better emotional outcomes than those who received general expressions of support and availability. Margaret's initial observations were startling. When visitors said, "Call me if you need anything," patients and families rarely called, often suffered in isolation, and showed higher rates of depression and anxiety. But when visitors said, "I'm bringing dinner Tuesday at 6, what would work better for you?" or "I'm going to the store tomorrow, can I pick up groceries for you?" the same families accepted help readily and showed dramatically better psychological and physical outcomes. Using primitive recording equipment, Margaret had been secretly documenting these interactions with family consent, measuring stress hormones, brain activity, and recovery rates. What she found challenged fundamental assumptions about human psychology and helping behavior. The brain scans revealed that when struggling people received vague offers of help, their already overwhelmed cognitive systems became even more burdened with additional decisions about whether to ask, what to ask for, and how to coordinate help. This created what Margaret termed choice paralysis in crisis, a condition where the very offer of help became another stressor rather than a relief. Modern neuroscience has since validated Margaret's discoveries using advanced brain imaging technology. Research conducted at Stanford University in 2021 showed that when people are experiencing stress or trauma, their prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for decision-making, becomes significantly impaired. During these states, even simple decisions like what do you need or when should I call can feel overwhelming and impossible to navigate. The brain literally lacks the cognitive resources to process open-ended offers of help. Dr. Adam Grant's research at Wharton has confirmed that specific offers of help are accepted at rates nearly 3 times higher than general offers. People struggling with illness, grief, financial stress, or other crises consistently choose concrete, low-decision assistance over vague expressions of availability. The research shows that saying "I'm free Saturday morning to help with yard work" generates positive responses in 89% of cases, while "let me know if you need help with anything" results in actual help requests only 12% of the time. Margaret's research revealed that the traditional model of helping, offering general availability and waiting for people to ask, actually served the helper's psychological needs more than the recipient's. It allowed helpers to feel generous and caring without the commitment and potential rejection that comes with specific offers. Meanwhile, it placed the burden of emotional labor on the person who was already struggling, requiring them to identify needs, overcome pride, coordinate logistics, and risk rejection or inconvenience to others. The corporate conspiracy that Margaret uncovered was more sinister than simple psychological blindness. Her hidden files revealed that certain industries had been actively promoting ineffective helping models because they profited from keeping people dependent and grateful, rather than truly supported. Insurance companies saved money when families struggled alone, rather than receiving effective support that might speed recovery. Healthcare systems benefited from patients who felt isolated and dependent rather than empowered with strong support networks. Even some charitable organizations found it easier to raise funds by showcasing ongoing need, rather than demonstrating effective problem solving. Margaret had discovered what she called learned helplessness in helpers, a phenomenon where well-meaning people unconsciously chose helping methods that made them feel good about themselves, while failing to provide meaningful assistance. The psychology was complex but predictable. Saying "call me if you need anything" allowed helpers to feel generous without committing to specific actions or times. It protected them from the vulnerability of having their specific offers declined. It allowed them to maintain control over when and how they would actually help. But for recipients, these vague offers created multiple psychological burdens. They had to overcome pride and cultural programming about self-reliance to ask for help. They had to perform emotional labor by identifying and articulating their needs. They had to coordinate logistics and timing with helpers. They had to risk rejection or inconvenience. Most challenging of all, they had to make these complex decisions while their cognitive resources were already depleted by whatever crisis they were facing. Margaret's breakthrough came when she started training hospital volunteers to offer specific, time-bound low-decision help instead of general availability. Instead of saying "I'm here if you need anything," volunteers learned to say things like, "I'm planning to be here Thursday afternoon. Would it help if I sat with your mom so you could go home and shower?" Or "I'm stopping by the cafeteria in an hour. Can I bring you back some coffee or a sandwich?" The results were immediate and dramatic. Patients whose families received decision-free help offers showed 45% faster recovery times, 67% lower rates of post-trauma depression, and 89% higher satisfaction with their support system. Family members reported feeling significantly less isolated and overwhelmed. Most remarkably, the helpers themselves reported feeling more connected and useful, rather than helpless in the face of others' suffering. The neuroscience behind these improvements was fascinating. When people received specific, actionable offers of help, their brains showed decreased activity in stress centers, and increased activity in areas associated with hope, connection, and future planning. The removal of decision-making burden allowed their cognitive resources to focus on healing rather than logistics. The specificity of offers communicated genuine care and attention, rather than social politeness. Margaret had been preparing to publish her findings when she began receiving threatening phone calls from unidentified sources, warning her to abandon her research. A letter found in her files, with the sender's information carefully removed, read, "Dr. Walsh, your research into helping effectiveness threatens established systems that depend on maintaining gratitude and dependence, rather than empowerment. We strongly advise you to discontinue this line of inquiry for your own safety and the stability of existing support structures." Her response, drafted but never sent,
revealed her determination: I will not allow helping to remain a tool for maintaining power over vulnerable people. True help empowers recipients, rather than making them more dependent. The decision-free help protocol will be published regardless of who profits from current ineffective models. Margaret's disappearance and death remain mysterious, but her research lived on through Brown and other colleagues who had witnessed the transformation that occurred when people learned to help effectively, rather than just kindly. Brown continued Margaret's work in secret, documenting how decision-free help offers created stronger relationships, faster healing, and more empowered recipients across various crisis situations. The research expanded to study families dealing with illness, divorce, job loss, bereavement, and other major life challenges. In every case, the pattern held true. Specific offers of help that required minimal decision-making from recipients were accepted more often, provided more meaningful assistance, and created stronger connections between helpers and those they served. The key was learning to see help from the recipient's perspective, rather than the helper's perspective. Margaret's hidden research revealed the psychological mechanisms that made decision-free help so effective. During times of stress, trauma, or crisis, human beings experience what researchers now call cognitive tunneling, a state where mental resources become focused on immediate survival or coping, leaving little capacity for complex decision-making or future planning. In these states, being asked to identify needs, coordinate help, or make decisions about assistance feels overwhelming rather than supportive. The cultural programming around helping had created additional barriers to effective assistance. Most people had been taught that asking for help was a sign of weakness or failure, that good people should be self-reliant and independent. These beliefs meant that even when help was needed desperately, people struggled to overcome internal resistance to requesting assistance. Vague offers like "let me know if you need anything" required recipients to overcome these psychological barriers, while also performing the emotional labor of identifying and communicating needs. Decision-free help offers bypassed these barriers entirely. When someone said, "I'm making extra dinner Sunday, can I drop some off for you?" the recipient didn't have to ask for help, identify a need, or coordinate logistics. They simply had to accept or decline a specific offer. This approach honored their autonomy, while removing the burden of decision-making during an already difficult time. The research also revealed that helpers themselves benefited enormously from learning decision-free help techniques. Instead of feeling helpless and uncertain about how to support someone, they could take concrete action that made a real difference. Instead of waiting passively for help requests that rarely came, they could proactively offer specific assistance. The feedback loop was much clearer. They could see immediately whether their help was useful and appreciated, rather than wondering if their general offer was ever considered. Margaret's training protocols taught helpers to think systematically about the types of assistance that might be valuable during different types of crises. For families dealing with medical emergencies, practical needs often included food, childcare, transportation, pet care, household maintenance, and emotional support. Instead of asking overwhelmed family members to identify and coordinate these needs, trained helpers learned to offer specific solutions with built-in timing and logistics. The protocol involved what Margaret called assumption-based offering, making educated guesses about what might be helpful, rather than requiring struggling people to perform the emotional labor of identifying needs. A helper might say, "I'm planning to do grocery shopping tomorrow, and would love to pick up essentials for you, would that be helpful?" Rather than "do you need groceries?" the first approach provided a specific action plan that could be easily accepted or declined, while the second required the recipient to think through their needs, overcome barriers to asking, and coordinate logistics. The research extended beyond crisis situations to everyday relationship dynamics. Margaret found that couples, families, and friendships functioned more smoothly when people learned to offer specific help, rather than general availability. Instead of saying, "What can I do to help?" effective helpers learned to say things like, "I have time this weekend to help with the garage cleaning project you mentioned. Would Saturday or Sunday work better?" This approach honored the recipient's autonomy, while removing decision-making burden and coordination labor. The psychological safety created by decision-free help offers was profound. Recipients felt cared for without feeling obligated or guilty. They could accept assistance without having to perform gratitude or reciprocity beyond simple acceptance or decline. The power dynamic remained balanced because helpers were offering specific actions, rather than general availability, that put recipients in the position of making requests. Margaret's research revealed that many helping failures occurred because well-meaning people offered the type of help they would want to receive, rather than help tailored to the recipient's actual situation and preferences. Extroverted helpers might offer social support to someone who needed practical assistance. Practical helpers might offer task completion to someone who needed emotional validation. The decision-free protocol required helpers to observe carefully and offer specific assistance that matched the recipient's actual circumstances, rather than the helper's comfort zone. The training involved teaching helpers to notice practical details about someone's situation and offer specific solutions rather than general support. A neighbor might notice that someone was struggling with yard work and offer, "I'm planning to trim my hedges this weekend, and could easily do yours too if that would help," rather than "let me know if you need help with yard work." A coworker might observe that someone seemed overwhelmed and offer, "I'm grabbing lunch for myself. Can I bring you back a sandwich?" rather than "Are you taking care of yourself?" The timing of help offers proved crucial in Margaret's research. Decision-free offers worked best when they were made proactively before recipients became desperate, and when they included specific timeframes that removed scheduling burden. Saying, "I'm free Thursday evening to help with the project you mentioned, would that timing work for you?" was more effective than open-ended availability that required recipients to coordinate timing during stressful periods. Margaret's protocols addressed the common fear that specific offers might be declined and create awkwardness. Her research showed that specific offers were actually declined less often than general offers were acted upon, and that declined specific offers created less relationship strain than ignored general offers. When someone declined a specific offer, both parties had clarity about the interaction. When someone failed to take up a general offer of availability, both parties often felt confused about whether the help was needed, wanted, or remembered. The research revealed that effective helpers learned to make multiple small, specific offers rather than single large, general offers. Instead of saying, "I'm here for whatever you need during this difficult time," skilled helpers might say, "I'm planning to pick up coffee tomorrow morning. Can I grab one for you?" Followed later by, "I have some extra time this afternoon for errands. If there's anything I could pick up for you," and later, "I'm making a big batch of soup this weekend. Would you like me to drop some off?" This approach provided ongoing support without creating coordination burden. The psychological impact of receiving decision-free help extended far beyond the immediate assistance provided. Recipients reported feeling seen, understood, and cared for in ways that general offers of availability never achieved. The specificity of offers communicated that the helper had been paying attention to their situation and thinking concretely about how to provide assistance. This level of attentiveness created emotional connection and trust that general offers rarely generated. Margaret's research documented how decision-free help created positive cycles rather than dependence. When people received effective assistance that honored their autonomy while removing burden, they were more likely to offer similar help to others. They learned by example how to provide meaningful support rather than just kind words. The skills spread through communities and families, creating networks of people who knew how to help each other effectively during difficult times. The medical applications of Margaret's research were profound. Healthcare providers who learned decision-free help techniques found that patients and families were more likely to accept support services, follow treatment plans, and maintain emotional stability during medical crises. Instead of giving patients long lists of available resources and telling them to call if needed, effective providers learned to say things like, "I'm going to have our social worker call you this afternoon to set up meal delivery for this week. Does that sound helpful?" The workplace applications were equally significant. Managers who learned to offer specific assistance rather than general availability found that stressed employees were more likely to accept help and less likely to burn out. Instead of telling overwhelmed team members to "let me know if you need support," effective managers learned to say, "I can take the client presentation off your plate this week so you can focus on the project deadline. Would that be helpful?" The parenting applications of Margaret's research transformed family dynamics. Parents who learned decision-free help techniques found that their children were more likely to accept assistance and less likely to struggle alone. Instead of asking, "How can I help you with homework?" effective parents learned to say, "I have time after dinner to help with math if you'd like," or "I noticed you have a big project due. Would it help if I pick up supplies tomorrow?" The friendship applications created deeper, more supportive relationships. Friends who learned to offer specific help rather than general availability found that their relationships became more intimate and reciprocal. Instead of saying, "I'm here if you need to talk," Skilled friends learn to say I'm planning to take a walk tomorrow evening, would you like company? Or I'm free for a coffee date this weekend, if you'd like to get out of the house. Margaret's research revealed that decision-free help was particularly crucial during major life transitions, when people's cognitive resources were depleted by change and uncertainty. During moves, job changes, relationship transitions, health crises, and bereavement, people benefited enormously from specific offers that removed decision-making burden while providing practical and emotional support. The cultural resistance to Margaret's findings came from multiple sources. Some people worried that decision-free help was presumptuous or controlling, missing the point that specific offers could always be declined, and that vague offers often went unused entirely. Others feared that this approach would create dependence, not understanding that effective help actually empowered recipients by preserving their cognitive resources for healing and growth, rather than coordination labor. The business world slowly began adopting Margaret's principles as companies realized that decision-free support created better customer experiences and employee relationships. Customer service representatives learned to offer specific solutions rather than general assistance. I can refund the shipping charge and expedite your replacement order to arrive tomorrow, proved more effective than how can I help resolve this situation for you. The approach reduced customer frustration while providing clearer action steps for service representatives. The therapeutic applications of decision-free help revolutionized counseling and social work practices. Therapists who learned to offer specific support rather than general availability found that clients were more likely to engage in treatment and follow through with recommendations. Instead of saying "call me if you're having a crisis," effective therapists learned to say "I'm going to check in with you by phone Thursday afternoon to see how you're managing. Would that be helpful?" The community organizing applications demonstrated how decision-free help could mobilize collective action more effectively than traditional volunteer recruitment. Instead of asking who can help with the community garden, effective organizers learned to say, "We need people to water plants Tuesday and Thursday evenings. Can you commit to one of those days? Or we're planning a work party Saturday morning, from 9 to noon, can you join us?" The research extended to understanding how decision-free help could address systemic inequalities and power imbalances. Traditional helping models often reinforced hierarchies by requiring people to ask for assistance, demonstrate need, and express gratitude. Decision-free help approaches honored recipients' dignity by offering specific assistance that could be accepted or declined without justification or performance of worthiness. Margaret's protocols addressed the complexity of offering help across cultural and economic differences. The research showed that decision-free help was particularly important when helpers had more resources or privileges than recipients, as it avoided creating dynamics where recipients had to perform gratitude or dependence. Specific offers allowed for more equitable exchanges, where recipients maintained autonomy and dignity. The research revealed that effective helpers learn to observe patterns and anticipate needs, rather than waiting for explicit requests. They noticed when someone was consistently stressed about a particular challenge and offered specific assistance related to that pattern. This required developing observation skills and emotional intelligence, rather than just good intentions. Margaret's work demonstrated that decision-free help required helpers to take emotional risks by making specific offers that might be declined. This vulnerability actually strengthened relationships, because it showed genuine care and investment rather than social politeness. Recipients could distinguish between helpers who were truly willing to invest in their well-being and those who were performing kindness without real commitment. The legacy of Dr. Margaret Walsh's research continues to transform how people understand and practice helping behavior. Every time someone offers to pick up groceries instead of asking what's needed, brings a specific meal instead of offering general food assistance, or suggests a concrete plan instead of providing vague availability, they're practicing the decision-free help protocol that Margaret died protecting. Perhaps Margaret understood something so fundamental about human psychology that it threatened systems built on maintaining dependence and grateful recipients, rather than empowered individuals. That true help honors people's autonomy, while removing barriers to assistance. That the most effective kindness is specific, actionable, and requires minimal decision-making from people who are already overwhelmed. That the difference between kindness and truly kind help lies not in the intention, but in the implementation. In a world that teaches us to offer help in ways that make us feel good about ourselves, The revolutionary act is learning to help in ways that actually serve others. In a society that rewards general expressions of care over specific actions, the radical choice is committing to concrete assistance that requires real investment. In a culture that places the burden of coordination on recipients, the transformative decision is taking responsibility for making help accessible and easy to accept. The ultimate truth that Margaret Walsh discovered and died protecting is that most help fails not because people don't care, but because they help in ways that serve their own psychological needs, rather than the recipient's actual situation. The person who learns to offer decision-free help becomes infinitely more useful to others, while building deeper, more meaningful relationships, based on genuine mutual support, rather than performed kindness and obligated gratitude. True kindness is not offering to help in ways that make us feel generous. True kindness is helping in ways that make the recipient's life genuinely easier, even when it requires more effort and vulnerability from us. From the final research notes of Dr. Margaret Walsh,
Timing matters in conversations, especially heavy ones. Don't bring up sensitive topics at the end of a meeting or hangout because it's better to address deep subjects when the emotional space is open and not when the other person is mentally preparing to leave. But few people realize that behind this simple principle lies one of the most devastating discoveries in human psychology, uncovered through a series of tragic events that began in a therapist's office in 1971 and has since revealed how poor conversational timing serves as an invisible destroyer of relationships, opportunities, and human connection itself. Dr. Rebecca Thornfield, a pioneering conversation analyst at Columbia University, was found dead in her car in the parking garage of her apartment building on a snowy February evening in 1971. The 43-year-old researcher, internationally recognized for her groundbreaking work on temporal psychology and human communication and the neuroscience of conversational readiness, had been studying the precise psychological mechanisms that determined when people were capable of processing difficult information when she discovered something that would ultimately cost her her life. The New York Police Department ruled it a suicide by carbon monoxide poisoning, but Dr. Thornfield's research partner, a young communications specialist named John Gottman, who would later become famous for predicting divorce with mathematical precision, suspected something far more sinister. Rebecca had been receiving threatening communications from unknown sources, and her final voicemail to Gottman was barely audible over what sounded like deliberate interference. "John, they don't want people to understand how timing controls everything. Most relationship failures aren't about what people say but when they say it. If this knowledge becomes widespread, it will destroy their ability to manipulate through conversational ambush. The timing protocols must survive." Found scattered across the passenger seat of her car were research notes written in increasingly erratic handwriting. "Exit timing = emotional terrorism. Preparation mode blocks processing. They weaponize poor timing, and most chilling of all, the wrong moment can destroy decades of trust in 30 seconds. Dr. Thornfield had been working on what she called Project Temporal Harmony, a comprehensive study of how conversational timing affected everything from therapeutic outcomes to business negotiations to intimate relationships. Her research assistant Gottman knew that Rebecca had uncovered something that threatened powerful systems built on maintaining confusion, conflict, and emotional dysregulation, rather than genuine communication and understanding. The mystery began 8 months earlier when Rebecca noticed something disturbing while analyzing recordings of therapy sessions, business meetings, and family interactions. She had been documenting how different timing patterns affected communication outcomes when she discovered that certain timing choices created such devastating psychological effects that they seemed almost deliberately designed to prevent resolution, understanding, or connection. Rebecca's initial observations were startling. When people brought up sensitive topics during the final minutes of scheduled interactions, the conversations almost invariably failed to achieve meaningful progress and often caused significant relationship damage. But the pattern was so consistent across different contexts that it seemed to suggest either unconscious psychological programming or deliberate manipulation rather than innocent poor timing. Using early EEG and heart rate monitoring equipment, Rebecca had been secretly measuring the physiological responses of conversation participants with their consent. What she found challenged fundamental assumptions about human communication and revealed a hidden epidemic of what she termed temporal emotional abuse, the unconscious or deliberate use of poor timing to create psychological harm while maintaining plausible deniability. The brain scans revealed that when people were mentally preparing to leave an interaction, their neural processing shifted dramatically. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for complex reasoning and emotional regulation, began shutting down while stress and time management centers became hyperactive. In this state, people became physiologically incapable of processing sensitive information effectively, regardless of their intelligence, emotional maturity, or communication skills. Modern neuroscience has since validated Rebecca's discoveries using advanced brain imaging technology. Research conducted at MIT in 2019 showed that during transition states, when people are preparing to leave one context and enter another, their brains show patterns identical to those seen during mild trauma responses. The default mode network, crucial for self-reflection and emotional processing, becomes significantly impaired while threat detection systems become hyperactive. Dr. Daniel Siegel's research on window of tolerance has confirmed that timing dramatically affects people's ability to remain in optimal zones for processing difficult information. When conversations about sensitive topics occur during times when people are already experiencing cognitive load from transition preparation, they frequently become dysregulated and either shut down emotionally or react defensively, making productive dialogue nearly impossible. Rebecca's research revealed that poor conversational timing created what she called amygdala hijack amplification, a condition where people's stress responses became magnified by the additional burden of having to process complex emotional information while their brains were already occupied with transition logistics. This explained why conversations that might have been productive under different timing circumstances became explosive or shut down entirely when initiated during exit transitions. The corporate conspiracy that Rebecca uncovered was more sophisticated than simple ignorance about timing psychology. Her hidden files revealed that certain industries and power structures had been deliberately promoting poor timing practices because they benefited from relationships that remained unresolved, conflicts that festered rather than healing, and communication patterns that prevented genuine understanding and connection. Management consultants were teaching executives to bring up controversial topics at the end of meetings to prevent thorough discussion and maintain control over outcomes. Lawyers were using exit timing strategies to catch opponents off guard and prevent thoughtful responses. Even some therapeutic modalities were unconsciously structured in ways that encouraged clients to bring up the most important material during final minutes when there was insufficient time for proper processing. Rebecca had discovered what she called strategic timing manipulation, a phenomenon where people unconsciously chose poor timing for difficult conversations because it allowed them to avoid the vulnerability and commitment required for genuine dialogue. By bringing up important topics when the other person was preparing to leave, they could claim to have addressed the issue while actually ensuring that no real progress would occur. But for recipients of poorly timed conversations, the psychological impact was devastating. They experienced the stress of having important but unresolved information introduced during moments when they were psychologically unable to process it effectively. They often left interactions feeling confused, dismissed, or manipulated without understanding why. The unfinished emotional business created ongoing anxiety and relationship strain that could persist for days or weeks. Rebecca's breakthrough came when she started training various groups to implement what she called temporal emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize optimal timing for different types of conversations and to delay sensitive discussions until conditions supported productive dialogue. The results were immediate and dramatic across every context she studied. Couples who learned proper conversational timing showed 67% fewer relationship conflicts and 89% better conflict resolution outcomes. Business teams that implemented timing protocols achieved 45% better decision-making results and significantly improved meeting satisfaction. Therapeutic relationships that honored timing principles showed 56% faster client progress and dramatically reduced session dropout rates. The neuroscience behind these improvements was fascinating. When sensitive conversations occurred during optimal timing windows when people felt psychologically settled and prepared for deeper dialogue, their brains showed increased activity in areas associated with empathy, creativity, and problem solving while stress centers remained calm.
The quality of listening, thinking, and emotional regulation improved dramatically when timing supported rather than undermined psychological readiness. Rebecca had been preparing to publish her findings when she began receiving anonymous threats warning her to abandon her research. A letter found in her files, with all identifying information carefully removed, read, Dr. Thornfield, your research into timing effectiveness threatens established systems that depend on maintaining unresolved conflicts and poor communication, rather than genuine understanding. We strongly advise you to discontinue this line of inquiry for your own safety and the stability of existing power structures. Her response, drafted but never sent, revealed her determination. I will not allow timing manipulation to remain a tool for preventing genuine human connection. True communication requires creating appropriate emotional space for difficult conversations. The temporal harmony protocols will be published regardless of who profits from relationship dysfunction and unresolved conflicts. Rebecca's death remains mysterious, but her research lived on through Gottman and other colleagues who had witnessed the transformation that occurred when people learned to honor timing in their communications. Gottman continued Rebecca's work in secret, documenting how temporal emotional intelligence created stronger marriages, more effective therapy, and more productive workplace relationships. The research expanded to study families dealing with divorce, workplace teams managing conflict, educational environments, and therapeutic relationships. In every case, the pattern held true. Conversations initiated during appropriate timing windows were significantly more successful than those forced during transitional moments when people were psychologically preparing to shift contexts. Rebecca's hidden research revealed the psychological mechanisms that made timing so crucial for effective communication. During times when people were preparing to leave one context and enter another, their brains automatically began shifting attention and energy toward the upcoming transition. This created what researchers now call cognitive tunneling, a state where mental resources became focused on logistics and future preparation, leaving minimal capacity for processing complex emotional information. The cultural programming around conversation timing had created additional barriers to effective communication. Most people had been taught that bringing up important topics at any available moment showed urgency and care, not understanding that poor timing could completely undermine the message they were trying to convey. Others had learned to use exit timing as a protective strategy to avoid the vulnerability of full engagement with difficult topics. Proper timing protocols bypassed these barriers entirely. When someone recognized that the other person was preparing to leave and chose to say, I have something important I'd like to discuss with you, when would be a good time to talk, they honored both the importance of the topic and the other person's psychological readiness. This approach preserved the possibility of meaningful dialogue while respecting natural transition rhythms. The research also revealed that both initiators and recipients benefited enormously from learning temporal emotional intelligence. Instead of feeling frustrated by conversations that went nowhere or created conflict, people could create conditions that supported genuine understanding and resolution. Instead of being caught off guard by poorly timed heavy topics, people could ask for appropriate timing that allowed them to be fully present and engaged. Rebecca's training protocols taught people to recognize the signs that someone was mentally preparing to leave an interaction and to adjust their communication accordingly. Physical cues included checking phones or watches, gathering belongings, looking toward exits, shifting posture toward departure, or making comments about upcoming obligations. Emotional cues included decreased engagement, shorter responses, or expressions of time pressure or distraction. The protocol involved what Rebecca called temporal respect, honoring the reality that people needed psychological preparation time for processing sensitive information, rather than springing important topics during moments when they were focused on transition logistics. A skilled communicator might notice exit preparation and say, I can see you're getting ready to leave, but I have something I'd like to discuss with you. When would be a good time to talk about it properly? The research extended beyond avoiding poor timing to understanding optimal timing for different types of conversations. Rebecca found that therapeutic discussions worked best when people felt settled and had adequate time for processing. Conflict resolution required even more careful timing, ideally when both parties felt emotionally regulated and prepared for potentially difficult dialogue. Creative collaborations benefited from timing that honored natural energy rhythms and inspiration cycles. The psychological safety created by appropriate timing was profound. People felt respected and honored when others recognized their transition states and chose to wait for better moments rather than forcing conversations during psychologically inappropriate times. They could engage more fully with difficult topics when they felt prepared and present, rather than torn between conversation demands and transition pressures. Rebecca's research revealed that many communication failures occurred because well-meaning people prioritized their own need to express something over the other person's capacity to receive it effectively. Anxious communicators might bring up relationship concerns at the end of dates, when partners were mentally shifting toward departure. Parents might initiate important conversations with children during transition times between activities. Managers might address performance issues during final minutes of already scheduled meetings. The training involved teaching people to recognize their own anxiety-driven timing impulses and to choose communication timing that served the relationship rather than just their immediate emotional needs. This required developing awareness of both their own psychological states and their observation skills regarding others' readiness for different types of dialogue. Rebecca's protocols addressed the common fear that delaying important conversations would mean they never happened. Her research showed that conversations postponed to appropriate timing windows were significantly more likely to achieve meaningful outcomes than those forced during poor timing. When people asked for better timing, they were actually prioritizing the success of the communication rather than avoiding it. The timing of sensitive conversations proved crucial in Rebecca's research. Heavy discussions worked best when they occurred during natural settling periods, rather than transition moments, when people had adequate time for processing rather than being rushed, and when emotional energy was available rather than depleted. Creating these conditions required planning and patience but resulted in dramatically better communication outcomes. Rebecca's protocols addressed the complexity of timing across different types of relationships and cultural contexts. The research showed that timing sensitivity was particularly important in hierarchical relationships, where power dynamics might prevent people from directly requesting better timing. Effective communicators learn to read contextual cues and adjust their timing choices to honor others' psychological states, even when explicit feedback wasn't provided. The research revealed that effective communicators learn to create appropriate timing rather than just waiting for it to occur naturally. They might suggest specific times for important conversations, create contexts that supported deeper dialogue, or explicitly acknowledge when timing wasn't optimal and make plans for better communication opportunities. Rebecca's work demonstrated that temporal emotional intelligence required communicators to tolerate their own anxiety about important topics, rather than seeking immediate relief through poorly timed conversations. This psychological maturity actually strengthened relationships because it showed genuine care for the other person's experience, rather than just self-focused emotional management. The training involved teaching people to distinguish between urgent communications that required immediate attention and important communications that benefited from optimal timing. True emergencies might require interrupting transition states, but most relationship discussions, feedback conversations, and emotional processing could be scheduled for times that supported rather than undermined effective dialogue. The medical applications of Rebecca's research were profound. Healthcare providers who learned optimal timing for difficult conversations found that patients and families were more able to process diagnoses, treatment options, and prognosis information when it was delivered during appropriate psychological windows rather than during transition moments or crisis states. The workplace applications were equally significant. Managers who learned to time feedback and difficult conversations appropriately found that employees were more receptive to criticism, more likely to engage in problem solving, and less likely to become defensive or shut down. Performance reviews and conflict resolution became significantly more effective when timing honored people's psychological readiness. The parenting applications of Rebecca's research transformed family dynamics. Parents who learned temporal emotional intelligence found that their children were more likely to engage in meaningful conversations about difficult topics and less likely to associate important discussions with stress and pressure. Family meetings and discipline conversations became opportunities for connection rather than conflict when timing supported open dialogue. The therapeutic applications revolutionized counseling practices. Therapists who learned to recognize and work with timing found that clients made faster progress, were more likely to engage with difficult material, and developed stronger therapeutic relationships. Session structures that honored natural conversation rhythms proved more effective than rigid time boundaries that forced important material into inappropriate timing windows. The friendship applications created deeper, more satisfying relationships. Friends who learned to honor timing found that their conversations became more meaningful and less likely to create misunderstandings or hurt feelings. They could address relationship issues and provide emotional support more effectively when they chose timing that supported rather than undermined their friends' capacity for engagement. Rebecca's research revealed that timing sensitivity was particularly crucial during major life transitions when people's psychological resources were already stretched. During times of grief, illness, job changes, relationship transitions, or other major stressors, people's capacity for processing additional difficult information was significantly reduced, making appropriate timing even more important. The cultural resistance to Rebecca's findings came from multiple sources. Some people worried that attention to timing would prevent important conversations from happening, missing the point that better timing actually made difficult conversations more likely to succeed. Others feared that timing considerations were just ways to avoid difficult topics, not understanding that temporal respect actually demonstrated commitment to meaningful dialogue. The business world slowly began adopting Rebecca's principles as companies realized that better conversational timing led to more effective meetings, better employee relationships, and improved decision-making processes. Sales professionals learned that timing significantly affected client receptivity. Customer service representatives discovered that timing considerations improved problem resolution and customer satisfaction. The educational applications demonstrated how timing affected learning and development. Teachers who learned to recognize optimal timing for feedback and difficult conversations found that students were more receptive to criticism and more likely to engage in meaningful learning. Parent-teacher conferences became more productive when timing honored families' emotional readiness for receiving information about their children. The community organizing applications showed how timing affected collective action and social change efforts. Organizers who learned temporal emotional intelligence found that people were more likely to engage with difficult social issues and more willing to participate in challenging conversations when timing supported rather than undermined their psychological readiness. The research extended to understanding how timing affected power dynamics and social justice efforts. Traditional confrontational approaches that forced difficult conversations during inappropriate timing often backfired by triggering defensive responses rather than opening minds. Effective change agents learned to create timing conditions that supported genuine dialogue and transformation. Rebecca's protocols addressed the complexity of timing across cultural and economic differences. The research showed that timing sensitivity was particularly important when communicating across power differentials, as people with less power often felt unable to request better timing directly. Effective communicators learn to observe contextual cues and adjust their timing choices to honor others' circumstances and constraints. The research revealed that effective timing required understanding natural rhythms and energy cycles rather than forcing conversations to fit arbitrary schedules. People had different times when they were most capable of processing emotional information, most creative, most receptive to feedback, and most able to engage in conflict resolution. Rebecca's work demonstrated that temporal emotional intelligence was particularly important for people in helping professions who regularly needed to deliver difficult information or facilitate challenging conversations. Doctors, therapists, teachers, managers, and parents all benefited enormously from learning to time their communications in ways that honored recipients' psychological readiness. The technology applications of timing research began emerging as communication platforms started incorporating timing awareness features. Some meeting software began suggesting optimal timing for different types of discussions. Communication apps experimented with features that help people recognize when timing might not be optimal for sensitive conversations. The research extended to understanding how digital communication affected timing dynamics. Text messages and emails could be sent during poor timing but received when timing was better, creating new possibilities for respecting temporal rhythms. However, instant communication also created pressure for immediate responses that often ignored timing considerations entirely. Rebecca's research revealed that timing awareness required developing emotional intelligence about both internal states and external contexts. Effective communicators learned to recognize when they were driven by anxiety to force conversations at inappropriate times and when others were showing signs of transition stress or emotional unavailability. The measurement applications of timing research allowed relationships and organizations to track communication effectiveness and identify patterns that supported or undermined meaningful dialogue. Couples could notice when their most successful conversations occurred and create more opportunities for those timing conditions. Teams could structure meetings to honor timing rhythms that supported their best collaborative work. The crisis intervention applications demonstrated how timing considerations became even more crucial during emergencies and high-stress situations. First responders and crisis counselors who learned temporal emotional intelligence found that people were more able to process information and make decisions when timing honored their shock and transition states rather than forcing immediate responses. The research revealed that timing sensitivity was particularly important for people who had experienced trauma, as their nervous systems were often hypervigilant to threats and required more careful attention to safety and readiness cues. Conversations about difficult topics needed even more attention to timing when people were healing from experiences that had damaged their sense of safety and trust. Rebecca's work demonstrated that temporal emotional intelligence was a learnable skill that improved with practice and awareness. People could develop sensitivity to timing cues, learn to manage their own anxiety-driven impulses to force conversations, and create conditions that supported the types of communication they wanted to have. The legacy of Dr. Rebecca Thornfield's research continues to transform how people understand and practice communication timing. Every time someone notices that a friend is preparing to leave and chooses to save an important conversation for a better time, creates space for processing after delivering difficult information, or asks when would be a good time to discuss something sensitive, they're practicing the temporal emotional intelligence protocols that Rebecca died protecting. Perhaps Rebecca understood something so fundamental about human psychology that it threatened systems built on maintaining unresolved conflicts and poor communication rather than genuine understanding and connection. That timing is not just a logistical consideration but a profound form of respect for others' psychological states and readiness. That the most important conversations deserve the timing that supports their success rather than being forced into convenient but inappropriate moments. In a world that pressures us to communicate immediately and constantly, the revolutionary act is learning to time our communications in ways that honor others' capacity to receive them well. In a society that rewards urgency over effectiveness, the radical choice is prioritizing the quality of dialogue over the convenience of timing. In a culture that often uses poor timing to avoid the vulnerability of genuine communication, the transformative decision is creating timing conditions that support real understanding and connection. The ultimate truth that Rebecca Thornfield discovered and died protecting is that timing in communication is not about convenience but about respect, not about efficiency but about effectiveness, and not about getting things off our chest but about creating conditions where difficult conversations can actually achieve meaningful outcomes. The person who learns to honor timing in their communications becomes infinitely more effective at building relationships, resolving conflicts, and creating the kind of dialogue that heals rather than harms. The right words at the wrong time can cause more damage than the wrong words at the right time. Timing in communication is not about when it's convenient for us to speak, but about when it's possible for others to truly hear. From the final research notes of Dr. Rebecca Thornfield.